Chapter 1343. Sun Yinger had been forced by Wang Ying to write her first self-reflection on the moon before she was released. Missing, or vividly showed how the word lowly was written in the wording of her self-reflection. She didn't have the guts to act rashly in front of Wang Ying. But when she actually wrote the self-reflection, she had already cursed Wang Ying more than 8,000 times in her heart. For every word she wrote, she cursed 10 times. Wang Ying didn't know where Ying had learned these swearing words. They didn't seem to be the same. She was even more primitive than Zuan players. In response, Wang Ying set up a fifth rule: don't let your imagination run wild when you're writing, or you might increase the number of words in your composition. Ha! Sun Yinger knew she couldn't resist. She could only stretch out her fingers, pull at her eyelids, and stick out her tongue. She swore her dissatisfaction with this behavior. Just like a childish ghost. So that night, Wang Ying gave Sun Yinger a new nickname, calling her Ying 3 years old. When Wang Ying released her, Sun Yinger found Lotus Sun and Lu Qingyi in a video chat. Both girls were slightly red in the face, and seemed to be in the middle of a heated discussion. What are you talking about? Sun Yinger hurriedly moved closer and turned into a shadow next to Lotus Sunday. There were often people walking around the hospital, and old man Sun was next door. Sun Yinger was worried that her human form might be discovered, so she had made this decision. Compared with a human form, a shadow form was safer. Seeing that Lotus Sun wasn't surprised at all to hear her voice, Sun Yinger immediately knew that Lotus Sun had already remembered her existence. Hee hee. As expected of my woman. As expected of Rong Rong. Missing, have you finished your self-reflection? You're very sincere, we've all seen it. On the other end of the video chat, Lu Qingyi couldn't help smiling when she saw Sun Yinger return. At the thought of how her self-reflection had actually been publicly executed, Sun Yinger's shadow turned red. He's too much. Why does he have to show everything to others? This Wang Ying. I'll definitely teach him a lesson in the future. Missing, don't be angry. It's actually nothing. President Ying is spurring you on. Lu Qingyi smiled. Cultivating in the void for 100 years might not be as beneficial as staying on Earth for a year. There were benefits to following Ling Zhenren. If you really hate Wang Ying, all the more you should stay on Earth. Is that so? Sun Yinger was skeptical. And in essence, your abilities all originate from the Shadow Dao. This was the great Dao ability that Ling Zhenren's younger sister had created. If you want to beat Wang Ying, you'll have to curry favor with Ling Zhenren's younger sister, said Lu Qingyi. Yes. I understand. Sun Yinger nodded. She had to admit that Lu Qingyi had given her a new train of thought. She was wondering why she couldn't use her Shadow Dao ability in front of Wang Ying. It was likely that Ling Zhenren's younger sister had given this hateful Wang Ying some special privileges. What a shameful authority dog. According to Lu Qingyi's directions, as long as he curried favor with Ling Zhenren's younger sister and obtained the same special ability as Wang Ying, he wouldn't have to be afraid of her anymore. At the very least, he could shake off Wang Ying's pursuit. Now, Sun Yinger felt that her hatred for Wang Ying had reached a critical point. The claw mark left by Wang Ying on her wrist was like a golden hoop on Sun Wukong's head, making Sun Yinger want to take it off all the time. Rong, what are you talking about? I think it's quite lively. Sun Yinger asked at that moment. She wanted to join the conversation between the two women. It's nothing, just a little. Her face was boiling hot, and she was a little embarrassed to say the words. Lu Qingyi quickly took over. It's nothing, just some experience in love. Experience in love? But we're all single here. Sun Yinger thought it was a little funny. I'm afraid you two haven't really fallen in love yet. This old lady has a lot of experience. Lu Qingyi smacked the table and laughed. She was indeed single now. But in the domain of the gods, when she was still that lofty eldest miss of the Lu family, there had been a lot of suitors. And among so many suitors, it was inevitable that there would be a lot of ex-boyfriends. And this was what Lu Qingyi meant by experience. Sounds interesting. Sun Yinger said, then what kind of experience? For example, French kissing lassie? At the thought of this, steam started to rise from the top of her head again. God knew why Sun Yinger, as her shadow, was actually so bold. She couldn't quite figure it out, but student Wang Ling's shadow, Wang Ying, seemed to have the opposite personality. She was a very domineering type. At this thought, Lotus Sun instantly felt a lot better. Because it seemed that she wasn't the only one who was troubled. Cough, cough, Lu Qingyi cleared her throat. Falling in love is a process that every girl or boy goes through. I have experience, but it's only limited to emotional issues. I don't know about other conveniences. You'll have to explore it yourselves. Explore it ourselves? Can you be more specific? Lotus Sun felt that Lu Qingyi was being very vague. Lu Qingyi dropped her forehead into her hand and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. You can only explore it yourselves. Do you want me and Miss Sun to simulate French kissing lassie? Lotus Sun and Sun Yinger, but speaking of which, I also have to kindly remind you. At that moment, Lu Qingyi put on the attitude of a big sister and said, whether it's a girl or a boy, love is love, but you must learn to cherish yourself. Miss Sun is so smart, I think it's very easy for you to understand this. I know. Lotus Sun nodded. Then, if you have any other questions, you can ask me, Lu Qingyi said with a smile in the video. I do. Sun Yinger volunteered. How many boyfriends did Miss Lu have? I can't remember. A lot, said Lu Qingyi. She didn't try to avoid it, it was just that she really couldn't remember. But even with so many ex-boyfriends, Lu Qingyi was still able to cherish and love herself. Of all these ex-boyfriends, Lu Qingyi remembered that she had only kissed one ex-boyfriend. There were many that she hadn't even been able to hold hands with. Now that these memories had been evoked by Sun Yinger's words, Lu Qingyi felt a little nostalgic. Lotus Sun was about to ask a question when Sun Yinger raised another one. Then how many times did Miss Lu go to bed? Hearing this, Lotus Sun spat out a mouthful of water on the screen. Lu Qingyi was resolute. Not even once. Sun Yinger, wow. Then aren't you a 1,000-year-old virgin? The corners of Lu Qingyi's mouth twitched. She finally understood why Wang Ying couldn't help bullying Sun Yinger. Chapter 1344. Lotus Sun didn't have Sun Yinger's straightforwardness and venomous tongue. It could only be said that as expected of Miss Lotus Sun's shadow. The gap in their personalities was indeed obvious. The point was that while Sun Yinger had a venomous tongue, Lu Qingyi couldn't get angry at all. Her's voice was too soft, even if she heard something outrageous, she would only want to pinch the girl's cheek hard. Miss Lotus Sun, if your personality and your shadow complement each other, I think it might work out. Lu Qingyi smiled in the video call. What? Lotus Sun felt inexplicably hot. With Ling Jinren. You have to take the initiative to drill a nail into that kind of blockhead for your relationship to be solid. Lu Qingyi analyzed. That's right, that's right. Sun Yinger chimed in. Missing can actually help, Lu Qingyi said. Help? Forget it. I still want to live a few more days. Sun Yinger was terrified at the thought of Wang Ying's terrible punishment. When I get the authority one day, I'll definitely teach that guy Wang Ying a lesson. I have to teach him a lesson. Missing, I'm afraid it won't be as easy as you think. Lu Qingyi smiled. Also, why do I feel that you actually don't hate him? After saying this, Sun Yinger instantly became excited. Lotus Sun saw that Sun Yinger's shadow wasn't as smooth as before. As if Lu Qingyi had hit the nail on the head, the shadow's silhouette was like an angry kitten, and it instantly became agitated. Who said that? He's the one I hate the most. After saying that, Sun Yinger slipped away through the crack as if she was fleeing, and who knew where she was going. In front of the screen, Lu Qingyi laughed hysterically. I finally know why President Ng likes to bully Miss Ng. Why? That reaction is too cute. Even his shadow is red when he's fleeing. Lu Qingyi couldn't stop laughing. Actually, even Miss Ng herself might not have thought that she might already like President Ng. No way. Wang Ying bullied him like that. Lotus Sun covered her little mouth. If she really hated him, why would she blush? Lu Qingyi scared, as if she had seen through everything. It seems that this pair of shadows are going to start first. You two masters have to work hard too. Classmate Lu. What nonsense are you talking about? Lotus Sun touched her face and felt that her temperature was starting to rise again. If there's anything you don't understand, you can ask me anytime. That's all for today, Miss Sunday. Lu Qingyi smiled and ended the video chat. It was 3:00 in the morning. She chatted with Lotus Sun for less than an hour. When the words "video call terminated" appeared on the screen, Lu Qingyi heaved a long sigh of relief. Lotus Sun's questions were finally over. The matter between her and Wang Zhen hadn't been resolved yet. The people of the Wang clan were indeed all blockheads. She had already hinted so clearly, so why couldn't Wang Zhen take the initiative? Lu Qingyi felt very tired. However, she also had her own principles. When it came to matters of the heart, the one who spoke first would definitely lose. Hence, she would never open her mouth to Wang Zhen first. Instead, she was waiting for Wang Zhen to take the initiative to confess to her. Thus, in this situation, it was very important to have a wingman who could make people jealous. Senior Gu. At that moment, Lu Qingyi turned her gaze to Gu Xuanji, who was watching TV. Gu Xuanji got goosebumps all over again when Lu Qingyi called him that. Miss Lu, what's the matter? How about going shopping with me at noon today? Let's be lovers for a day. Lu Qingyi asked. Gu Xuanji choked on his fat otaku Coca-Cola, and the shock on his face couldn't be any greater. Lovers? Lovers? On the other side, Sun Yinger, whose face had turned red from Lu Qingyi's words, hid to the side to write her reflection. Her first reflection had been written under Wang Ying's supervision. Although the words she wrote were sincere, they were not from her heart. Now that Wang Ying wasn't by her side, Sun Yinger could finally speak her mind freely. Wang Ying big pervert. Wang Ying big pervert. Wang Ying. Big. Change. F***CK. Sun Yinger muttered to herself as she wrote the self-reflection. It was an 800-word reflection. She wrote the words, Wang Ying big pervert, 160 times, then she smoothly tossed her pen. Heh. Done. It was still 5:00 in the morning on Wednesday, December 2nd. Wang Ling knew that things weren't looking good. He already knew that Lotus Sun's memories hadn't been erased. Everyone was rushing to help her, which put Wang Ling in a very difficult position. A traitor in the crowd wasn't the scariest thing. The scariest thing was that everyone was a traitor, but to put it bluntly, these people were Wang Ling's friends, and he wouldn't necessarily do anything excessive to them. Therefore, he was in a dilemma. Wang Ling's first instinct was to escape. Escape was shameful, but it was useful. For several hours, Wang Ling studied the bug in his singles curse. He decided to fix the loopholes in singles curse once again. For Wang Ling, developing spells wasn't difficult. Instead, it was more difficult to check for loopholes. Because a lot of the loopholes in spells could only be found through practice. He hadn't used singles curse very often, and it was only after discovering a loophole that Wang Ling would fix. At 5:00 in the morning, Wang Ling filled in all the loopholes in singles curse. There definitely wouldn't be a reverse confession bug in singles curse. Now, as long as he put the halo of singles curse on himself, Wang Ling believed that he would completely become an insulator in love. Is it really okay to do this? I just feel like something's going to go wrong. Wang Ying lay on Wang Ling's bed, his head pillowed on his arm as he asked this question. He said he was concerned about Wang Ling, but in fact, his mind was full of Sun Yinger. There were still 16 hours until the 406th planet banging session at 8:00 tonight. 16 hours was 960 minutes, or 57,600 seconds, Wang Ying always kept a timer in his heart. He felt like he was a little addicted to bullying Sun Yinger. Who the hell knew why he could give birth to a shadow with this kind of personality? Wang Ling felt that he was becoming more and more unable to understand Wang Ying. With this straightforward personality, it was very easy for problems to crop up in the future. But it wasn't convenient for him to get involved in the affairs of shadows. In any case, Single's curse had already been upgraded. Wang Ling's heart, which had been hanging in the air, finally relaxed a little. This time, there probably wouldn't be any more bugs. On the other side, Old Man Sun of Huaguo Water Curtain Group. After Sun Yinger's secret reminder, he finally patted his head and remembered Wang Ling's confession last time. So it's this kid. The old man rubbed his hands together. He had always been very satisfied with Wang Ling. But even if Lotus Sun was interested in Wang Ling, as a grandfather, he couldn't force a boy to like his granddaughter. They were only 16 years old. There was still a long way to go. Someone, send me an internal secret message. Old Man Sun raised his arm and called out. Sir, what's the matter? Jiang Xiaoche asked. There's a young man called Wang Ling. From now on, wherever he goes, as long as it's under our Huaguo Water Curtain Group, upgrade all services to the highest level, and our group will bear all the costs. All the costs? Including getting a room? Jiang Xiaoche laughed. Classmate Wang would never do something so outrageous. Get lost. The old man kicked Jiang Xiaoche's butt. Chapter 1345. Wang Ling realized that something wasn't right with everyone recently. Ever since he was young. Except for his family members. In fact, Wang Ling had never been crazily pursued by a friend of the opposite sex. This was Lotus Sun's first time. This made Wang Ling a little flustered. Even though he tried his best to pretend to be calm. When he was in junior high, he had thought that he had a crush on a girl. But later, when he thought about it carefully, he didn't think that it might not have been a crush. Later on, Wang Ling felt that it was like an animal lover protecting an injured kitten on the side of the road in the rain. It was the sympathy and compassion of the strong for the weak. So until now, Wang Ling hadn't been able to pinpoint his feelings. Emotional matters were too complicated. He had protected Lotus Sun as a classmate. But could that really be called liking her? Was it possible that it was also a kind of compassion for the weak? If that was the case, he might have let an innocent person get hurt again. Thus, escape became the path that Wang Ling chose. He knew that he would never be able to take the initiative like Wang Ying. That kind of indomitable spirit, that kind of vigorous vigor, perhaps it was Wang Ying's existence. Was that what he yearned for, but was doing his best to avoid? Who knew? After a sleepless night, Wang Ling looked out the window and saw the sun rise in the east. It was another peaceful day, Wang Ling knew. Lotus Sun's matter hadn't completely come to an end yet. As long as the person behind the scenes wasn't caught, this matter would never settle down. Gu Xuanji realized that something wasn't right with the recent developments. First of all, Lu Qingyi and Wang Jin seemed to have a connection with each other, but so far, neither of them had any intention of confessing. In the wee hours of the morning, his mother had actually asked him to pretend to be her boyfriend. Gu Xuanji instantly felt like he had been struck by lightning at this miraculous operation, which was even scarier than being struck by the divine lightning of heavenly tribulation. Of course, this had happened without Lu Qingyi's knowledge. In order not to expose his true purpose for transmigrating to Earth from the future, Gu Xuanji naturally couldn't expose the truth. But this still gave Gu Xuanji a headache. Before setting off, Gu Xuanji logged onto the Beep Q&A platform to ask questions about what was going to happen to him. Question: My mother wants me to pretend to be her boyfriend. What should I do? Answer 1: To be frank, this is really awkward. So, won't the question host send a photo of your mother? I think you can ask me. I'm a male turtle cultivator. I have a car and I have a ticket. Answer 2: I just got off the Immortal ship. The subject's mother must have been a female cultivator who cared about her appearance and paid great attention to taking care of herself. Judging from her behavior, your mother probably doesn't have any friends of the opposite sex, otherwise she wouldn't have asked her son to pretend to be her boyfriend. The second answer hit the nail on the head, instantly rendering Gu Xuanji speechless. True that Lu, most of the other core members of the battle sect knew who Lu Qingyi was, but they usually didn't have much interaction with her. She asked Ling who Zhu and est Ling was Ling with him Ling with Ling was. She Ling Teet Ling was she didn't have the guts to look for Wang Ling. Since she dared to pair up with Ling Jinren, she had to come out and apologize. Furthermore, Lotus Sun would definitely misunderstand. A woman's jealousy was a very scary thing. Lu Qingyi still wanted to survive on Earth. And given her current economic strength on Earth, there was no way she could beat Lotus Sun. As for looking for Fang Xing, that was even more impossible. Because she was very clear. Fang Xing and Wang Ling were in the same boat. Furthermore, Fang Xing was very mischievous, and might sabotage her plan. So in the end, Lu Qingyi turned this wingman's gaze to her. Gu Xuanji suddenly felt a little tired. Pretending to be his mother's boyfriend was a novel experience. Even as a keeper of order, he had never experienced it before. In that instant, Gu Xuanji felt his mind go haywire. He didn't know what to say. At noon, the nightmare that Gu Xuanji had been waiting for finally arrived. Lu Qingyi had dressed herself up beautifully. It was clear that the woman had been preparing for a long time for this plan. Even the clothes she was wearing were brand new, a light purple lace dress with black stockings and high heels. Set off by Lu Qingyi's exquisite figure, Gu Xuanji could indeed sense the alluring mother in the wedding photo album. Gu Xuanji had always seen Lu Qingyi wear number 60 high school uniform, but now that she was wearing this new outfit, she really looked like a different person. Clothes really made the man. What are you spacing out for? Aren't you going to change? Lu Qingyi couldn't help reminding Gu Xuanji when she saw him standing there in a daze. Change? Gu Xuanji looked down at his outfit. He was dressed casually, and didn't feel out of place. You don't have a suit. This outfit doesn't match me. Lu Qingyi frowned. This kind of straight man's aesthetic was simply hopeless. Sure enough, there was still a woman in this family who taught the boys how to dress. Fortunately, she was already prepared, and took out the high-end suit she had prepared. Where did you get the money? Gu Xuanji was startled. I had a love exchange with Miss Sun last night. Miss Sun was so happy that she sent me 100,000 yuan. It's only a matter of minutes to get a suit, express delivery is so convenient now. The spirit sword will send it to you in a moment, Lu Qingyi said. This lesson is actually paid? Gu Xuanji was startled. Let me say this first, I didn't take it from Miss Sun, she forced it on me. She said that she'd have to trouble me later if anything happened. She also gave me a black card from Huaguo Water Curtain Group, which gives me a 30% discount on any product under Huaguo Water Curtain Group. Lu Qingyi smiled. She then took the initiative to take off Gu Xuanji's clothes, intending to help him change into them. Gu Xuanji was startled. What are you doing, Lu Qingyi? What else? I'm helping you change your clothes. This action instantly reminded Gu Xuanji of when Lu Qingyi had helped him change his clothes when he was a child. Then, Gu Xuanji's memory went haywire for a brief moment. Thus, in a moment of desperation, Gu Xuanji let it slip. Mom, don't move. I'll do it myself. Mom? Lu Qingyi was stunned. What I mean is, please don't move, I'll do it myself. Gu Xuanji was quick-witted, and immediately smoothed things over. Lu Qingyi patted Gu Xuanji's bouncy butt, stared at his crotch, and couldn't help laughing. I've met countless people and seen everything. Why would I care about a few grams of your flesh? After saying that, Lu Qingyi turned the door handle in her high heels without looking back. Hurry up and change. I'll wait for you at the elevator. Gu Xuanji was already in a mess. Chapter 1346. A luxurious red convertible sports car was parked at the ground floor of the staff apartment. Lu Qingyi had rented the sports car with Huaguo Water Curtain Group's black card, and it cost 2,000 yuan a day. Now that she had some spare cash, she naturally wouldn't feel distressed over a mere 2,000 yuan. Since it was a bait to make Wang Jin jealous, today, he had to settle everything in one go. No matter how much money she had to spend, Lu Qingyi wouldn't feel the pinch. Of course, he couldn't just leave and not enter. Gu Xuanji sat in the driver's seat and noticed that Lu Qingyi was chatting with someone. The woman's typing speed was incredibly fast. He didn't know where he learned the lightning finger technique, but his tapping speed was comparable to Takashi Kato. "I'm chatting with classmate Lotus Sun," Lu Qingyi said as she typed. "Talk about what?" Gu Xuanji was curious. "You're pretending to be my boyfriend today, and my goal is to hook up Wang Zhen, so I can teach you how to be jealous. I reckon we'll have to spend a lot today, so we can't just spend without spending," Lu Qingyi said with a smile. Gu Xuanji clicked his tongue. He felt that the woman in front of him was just as his father had said. She was a calculative person. He would never let himself suffer a loss. "Didn't you say that you wouldn't accept money?" Gu Xuanji asked with a smile. "Nominally, of course it's free. That's doing Miss Lotus Sun a favor. In order to return the favor, Miss Lotus Sun would definitely give me a red packet. This way, I'll owe classmate Lotus Sun a favor and improve my relationship with her. At the same time, accepting the red packet won't make classmate Lotus Sun feel uncomfortable," said Lu Qingyi. Hearing this, Gu Xuanji was amazed in his heart. His mother's move was too brilliant, and he was left in the dust. Speaking of which, is there really friendship between girls? Gu Xuanji started the sports car and asked a curious question. In fact, he also wanted to hear his mother's opinion. Although pretending to be her boyfriend was awkward. However, this was also an opportunity for him to get to know his mother better. "Of course there is," Lu Qingyi replied as she typed. "The premise is that the boyfriends aren't the same. Otherwise, even if you're my best friend, you'll fall out with me at any time." "Gu Xuanji, where are we going?" "The Changyang Cultivation Aquarium in the city center," Lu Qingyi said. "Why go there?" Wei Ji introduced Wang Zhen to a part-time job. "It's there. Although it was a little tough, the pay was high. Since I want him to be jealous, of course I have to show off in front of him." Lu Qingyi imagined the scene in her head. Think about it, a man is working hard in an aquarium, and at that moment, the girl he's interested in suddenly shows up with a pretty boy and walks back and forth intimately in front of him. "So I'm a gigolo?" "It's just an example, little brother. Don't mind it so much," Lu Qingyi said with a smile. "Do you feel like you're burning with anger when you think about it this way?" "Indeed." Gu Xuanji nodded. "Have you ever thought about what if I get beaten up by him?" "Come on, can he beat you?" Lu Qingyi laughed. "So, you've calculated everything?" Gu Xuanji smiled wryly. "I've been planning since I came back from the 9-Dragon Mountain tournament." Gu Xuanji sighed again. A woman's heart is like a needle at the bottom of the ocean. His mother was too scary. But from his own point of view, Gu Xuanji was definitely going to add to the mess. Otherwise, he would have to run away with another man. But if his mother ran away with another man, not only would his mother be gone, but he would also be gone. The above sounded a little like a curse, but it was definitely a cry from the bottom of Gu Xuanji's heart. Heavens! Save the child. Halfway through the sports car, Gu Xuanji asked another magical question. "Have you ever thought about what if your operation fails?" "My plan is very detailed. It's impossible for it to fail." Lu Qingyi kept smiling. She was very confident in her sweet and sour carp plan. But what Lu Qingyi didn't know was, there was a surprise waiting for her in the aquarium a few hours ago. In the early hours of that morning, Wang Zhen received a text message from Gu Xuanji. Lu Qingyi's sweet and sour carp plan was written on it. "Actually planning to pretend to be my boyfriend to make me jealous. Wang Zhen stared at Gu Xuanji's message, the corners of his mouth twitching. This kind of behavior was no different from trying to provoke him so that he would confess first. Ha! What a vicious plan. Good brother. Thank you for telling me all this. Wang Zhen texted Gu Xuanji to express his thanks. Then, he quickly deleted all the chat records. Lu Qingyi definitely couldn't do it alone. Thus, Wang Zhen made a decision: take this opportunity to counterattack. You can find someone to pretend to be your boyfriend. Then I can also find someone to pretend to be my girlfriend. Let's see who gives in first. Then, a brand new plan sprouted in Wang Zhen's heart. Of course, the premise of this plan was, he had to find someone who would pretend to be his girlfriend. For a moment, Wang Zhen was distressed. He didn't have many friends of the opposite sex. Quite a few girls from number 60 high were interested in him, and had even written him love letters. Wang Zhen read a few of them. They were so mushy. If he asked these little girls for help, they would naturally agree. But what Wang Zhen was afraid of was that this group of kids would take it seriously and turn it into a reality. At that time, not only would he not be able to catch Lu Qingyi, he would also be accused of playing with feelings. He thought about it. Wang Zhen thought of a very suitable candidate. It was just that it wouldn't be easy to invite this person. Using his lifelong literary skills, Wang Zhen tried hard to think of the right words. He sent a text message to the person he had in mind. 6:00 in the morning. Wang Zhen pretended that he had nothing to do and went out to work. This was a job that Wei Ji had recommended to him after returning from Nine Dragon Mountain when he heard that Wang Zhen was short of money. The main job was to be a breeder and feed them. Because spirit beasts were wild to a certain extent, Wang Zhen might not have been chosen if it wasn't for his thick skin and his resistance to bites. The actual time of the report was 9:00. But before that, Wang Zhen needed to see someone first. In Fang Xing's family noodle shop. Brother Fang Xing. My happiness. I'm counting on you. Smiley face angle, Wang Zhen knelt on the ground and kowtowed sincerely. Your matter sounds very interesting. It's not that I don't want to help, but I'll say this first. I don't accept large-scale contact. Don't worry, classmate Fang, I won't accept it either. I'm just putting on a show. At most, I'll borrow a seat. Borrow a seat? All right. Fang Xing smiled. Miss Lu has never seen me in female form. As long as I dress up a little, she won't recognize me. It's just that. It was just this favor. He couldn't do it for free. Wang Zhen wasn't an idiot, and immediately understood what Fang Xing meant. Classmate Fang, what do you want? As long as I can do it, I'll do it. I'm not in a hurry. Let me ask you a question first. Fang Xing asked, I heard that a lot of people thoughtfully sent Miss Sun a USB flash drive to help her recover her memory. I didn't. Wang Zhen's answer was resolute and decisive. Don't be so nervous, it's fine if you sent it. Miss Sun becoming a core member of Battle's sect is inevitable. If someone wants to send a USB flash drive, then so be it. What I care about is whether classmate Lotus Sun really likes classmate Wang Ling that much. At that moment, Fang Xing cupped his chin and spoke. Sounding out Lotus Sun's attitude had always been part of his plan. He felt that this was a particularly good opportunity. What do you mean, Brother Fang? I heard that Brother Wang Zhen is actually very popular at number 60 high. That's good, no need to be humble, Brother Wang Zhen. Fang Xing smiled. What I want you to help me with is actually as easy as lifting a finger. I want you to transfer the love letters from those girls to Ling Jinren's home and his desk. It'd be best if you also put a few copies in classmate Lotus Sun's desk. But Brother Fang Xing can also do this. Guys use different words than girls. Fang Xing voiced her distress. I often get letters from guys. Wang Ling was speechless. Wang Zhen. Both genders, as expected of classmate Fang Xing, who was known as the heartthrob of millions, but will I be able to do it? But Wang Zhen still had some misgivings about Fang Xing's suggestion. Why not? Just change the header a little. After removing the Zhen from Wang Zhen, it'll be classmate Wang. Who knows if it's for you or Wang Ling? Fang Xing said. May I ask why you're doing this? Wang Zhen was puzzled. Fang Xing smiled. I want to see if classmate Lotus Sun will be jealous. Fine. Deal. Thus, Wang Zhen gritted his teeth and agreed. At that moment, the two men reached a consensus. Chapter 1347. In the morning, Wang Ling chose a place to test out the effects of his improved singles curse. Normally, Wang Ling wouldn't be in the mood to specifically test spells. But there were still a few days before the start of school at number 60 high. Wang Ling had a lot of time to spare. In addition, he had finished his homework for the day and had already recorded his study video. So he might as well go out and test his spells. It was said that Headmaster Chen had spent a lot on the school's green environment. Wang Ling actually really wanted to see what would happen when classes resumed next Monday. He really wanted to see how number 60 high would change. Wang Ling dressed up very tightly. He didn't take off any of his mask, sunglasses, and cap. A high-collared linen windbreaker and a pair of slim-fit jeans showed off his good figure to the fullest. As for Wang Ling's outfit today, Book of Sage Immortal's comment was that he looked a little like a private detective who went out to investigate his mistress. So before Wang Ling left, he stuffed Book of Sage Immortal into Lord Ma's mouth. To test a spell, he naturally needed a suitable location. As for the location, Wang Ling already had an answer for it. The Changyang Cultivation Aquarium in the city center. It was a place where a lot of couples would hang out. That was right, the targets of Wang Ling's spell test were couples who openly displayed their affection in public places like the aquarium. But Wang Ling himself wasn't a member of the FFF team. Breaking up someone's marriage was a very wicked thing to do. So Wang Ling had actually made some preparations for this. He added a temporary additional condition to Single's curse. 30 minutes after the spell took effect, the effect of Single's curse would be removed, and the couple would completely forget all the unpleasant memories between the two of them. As long as this condition existed, Wang Ling could carry out the test normally without ruining the relationship between the young couple. At around 9 o'clock in the morning, Wang Ling had already arrived at the front of the aquarium. This was the largest aquarium in the city center. The entire building was made of glazed tiles in the shape of a whale. At noon, there would be a fountain show at the top of the aquarium, and a large number of people would come here every day to watch. Even on a working day, the front of the aquarium was still unprecedentedly grand. There was a long line at the ticket window. Wang Ling had been in line for nearly 30 minutes. Sir, please show me your second-generation ID card. You have to register with your real name to enter the venue, the young lady at the ticket window said politely. Wang Ling voluntarily handed over his ID card. After the young lady scanned his identity information, she stood up in shock. I didn't know Director Wang was here. Please don't blame me, President Wang. The corners of Wang Ling's mouth twitched. Wang. Director Wang? When did he become CEO Wang? Director Wang, you can actually use the green passageway at the side. You can enter the coffin with your ID. You don't need to buy a ticket. The young lady smiled and politely pointed at the green passageway at the side of the aquarium. Wang Ling was confused and had no idea what was going on. After he left the group, he pinched his fingers and made a divination. Only then did he realize that it was Old Man Sun's doing. So this aquarium is also a property of Huagua Water Curtain Group? Wang Ling had a slightly helpless expression on his face. Aren't you a drug dealer? Why was the underground industrial chain so rich? There weren't many people who could enter directly from the Green Channel, so Wang Ling didn't need to line up at all. As long as you swipe your ID card, the fence of the Green Passage will open automatically. Welcome, Director Wang. As soon as Wang Ling swiped his ID card, the AI device in the fence made a sound, which gave him a fright. This was too high profile. It made Wang Ling feel a little uncomfortable. After entering the gate, a tall beautiful woman immediately took the initiative to greet him from among the row of VIP guides standing in front of the gate. "Director Wang, do you need a guide?" Wang Ling shook his head and refused on the spot. His main purpose was to test his spells, and it was too inconvenient for someone to follow him around. "Very well, Director Wang." The guide had a smile on her face the whole time, and then took the initiative to hand over a map of the venue. "Director Wang, you can use your ID card to enjoy free VIP service for all the facilities and restaurants in the aquarium." This map was specially made for the venue and had automatic positioning and navigation functions. Wang Ling could even directly place an order through the smart map. The staff in the museum would immediately send over the items he wanted. The night he opened the restaurant, Wang Ling scanned the dazzling array of high-end seafood delicacies. After discovering that there weren't any crispy noodle snacks, he angrily clicked the X in the top right corner of the map. Then, he checked the map again and walked in the direction of the Lover Pavilion. In the Lover Pavilion, all the water spirit beasts kept in captivity appeared in pairs, and there were a lot of couples who would watch. For Wang Ling, this was the perfect holy land to test his spells. He followed the navigation function of the map all the way. At that moment, two familiar figures flashed past Wang Ling's eyes. He saw Wang Zhen in his aquarium uniform, and he also walked in the direction of the Lover Pavilion. Next to Wang Zhen, a very beautifully dressed girl gently held his arm. Wang Ling rubbed his eyes to make sure he wasn't seeing things. At the same time, Wang Ling's heart shook like thunder. Wang Zhen in his work uniform, and Fang Xing in her female form. Why were these two people here? And it looked like they were very close. Wang Ling was a mess. When experts exchanged blows, every move was fatal. This was the current situation of Lu Qingyi and Wang Zhen. After parking the sports car in the aquarium's underground parking lot, Gu Xuanji gripped the steering wheel, sweat running down his temples. He didn't know why, but he had a bad feeling. "What are you spacing out for? Get out of the car. Why do you look so preoccupied today?" Lu Qingyi felt that something wasn't right with Wang Zhen. Gu Xuanji opened his mouth and almost followed up by calling Lu Qingyi a mom. It wasn't easy to pretend to be Mom's boyfriend. Now, Gu Xuanji had to think carefully every time he opened his mouth. He couldn't go along with what Lu Qingyi said. If he said "Mom" carelessly, everything would be exposed. "I just don't think it's good for us to do this, right?" Gu Xuanji wanted to retreat, mainly because he really did have a very bad feeling about this. "I'm here, what are you afraid of? If anything happens, I'll take full responsibility." Lu Qingyi was very determined as she pulled Gu Xuanji's hand and dragged him out. Helpless, Gu Xuanji could only compromise. "Mom, slow down, Lu Qingyi." "Gu Xuanji, please, slow down." Lu Qingyi let go and frowned. "No. This isn't the first time I've heard you call me Mom." Had he been discovered, Gu Xuanji's expression instantly tensed up. Just when he thought Lu Qingyi might have already guessed everything, at that moment, Lu Qingyi suddenly bent down and asked concernedly, "Do you have a very serious Oedipus complex?" "Gu Xuanji. It's okay, I actually don't discriminate against Mom's baby. Even if you look younger than me, you can't just call a girl Mom, understand? But given our working relationship, I won't be angry if you call me Mom in private." "Who asked my son to be so handsome?" Lu Qingyi smiled and reached out to rub Gu Xuanji's head. Gu Xuanji was shocked again. Damn her brain circuit, it was too amazing. For a moment, he actually found it hard to resist. At that moment, Lu Qingyi smiled. "So, since I'm your mom, as a son, shouldn't you listen to Mom and not let her get hurt?" Gu Xuanji wanted to cry but had no tears. "I want to grow up quickly so I can protect her." Lu Qingyi nodded in satisfaction. "Good boy. Come with Mom and pretend to be a boyfriend." Gu Xuanji. Chapter 1348. Gu Xuanji actually regretted taking the initiative to inform Wang Zhen earlier. His original intention was to make Wang Zhen feel that his mother, Lu Qingyi, was a very scheming woman, and thus make Wang Zhen feel disgusted with her. In the end, he hadn't expected Wang Zhen to be agitated by Wang Zhen. He actually found a fake girlfriend to pretend to be a couple. The uneasiness in Gu Xuanji's heart intensified when he heard this news. Meanwhile, at the headquarters of Huaguo Water Curtain Group. As soon as Wang Ling entered the aquarium, Old Man's son already had his eyes on him. The feedback mechanism of his ID card information sent Wang Ling's entry to Old Man's son's cell phone. On the side, Jiang Xiaoqi frowned. Master, there's really something wrong with this person. He's a man, yet he went to the aquarium alone? Will there be any psychological problems? Old Man's son was obviously a little uncomfortable with Jiang Xiaoqi's words. Who said that a person can't go to the aquarium alone? Jiang Xiaoqi, I feel that student Wang is definitely going to the aquarium today for an inspection. He must want to ask Rongrong out, so he came here in advance to do his homework. Today, Old Man's son's imagination was as powerful as ever. Jiang Xiaoqi, is that so? That must be it. Old Man's son had always been very confident in his guesses. Actually, Changyang wasn't the only aquarium in the city center, so why had Wang Ling chosen it? They must have come because they knew that this was the property of their family group. It was obvious that he was here to do his homework for his precious granddaughter. Jiang Xiaoqi said, even if what old master said is right, but he didn't have to spend money to invite Miss to this place. This is letting this kid off too lightly. Old Man's son rolled his eyes. What do you know? This was called having a sense of economy. Do you think classmate Wang will be like you, living a luxurious life? It's not easy for a 16-year-old to have such a frugal view of the economy. It should be encouraged. This time, Jiang Xiaoqi finally understood. Old Man's son seemed very satisfied with his future grandson-in-law. This directly caused everything he said to be wrong. It was too difficult for him. However, Jiang Xiaoqi felt that he still had a chance in the current situation. He had grown up with Lotus Sunday. Moreover, he had been secretly in love with Lotus Sun for a long time. How could he let someone else take over a cabbage that he had watched grow up? Wang Ling, just you wait. The Sun family's grandson-in-law will definitely be me. Jiang Xiaoqi swore in his heart. He had already assigned some tasks to the spies at the aquarium to trip Wang Ling up. From Jiang Xiaoqi's point of view, since Sunny Yuan's eyes were already blinded, then he had to give him a strong dose of medicine. It would be best if Wang Ling did. Complete, social death. __. Today's aquarium was unexpectedly lively. In front of the lover house, many couples gathered here. This lover house is really interesting. Did you see that? All the spirit beasts in the restaurant come in pairs. A couple said through the huge glass wall in front of them. Many cultivators who were passionately in love even naturally hugged and kissed in such an atmosphere. This made Wang Ling feel out of place on his own. In front of the railing in front of the house, Wang Ling saw many couples writing their names on red ribbons for blessings, and then tying them to the railing. At that moment, through the glass wall, Wang Ling saw a pair of swirling spirit sea lions doing something indescribable. The male swirling spirit sea lion was lying on top of the female. Every time someone tied a red ribbon to the railing, the male sea lion's body would squirm 5 or 6 times. Wang Ling used the map in his hand to look up information on swirling spirit sea lions in the lover house. In the end, he discovered that they actually had another nickname, Water Teddy. Because they were naturally sensitive to red, male swirling spirit sea lions had an unusual reaction to red objects during mating, which greatly increased the chances of a female sea lion getting pregnant. Wang Ling, his knowledge had really increased. Wang Ling felt that the amount of information in front of him was even greater than when he had watched the world of spirit beasts as a child. But as a good teenager with a proper outlook on the world, Wang Ling wouldn't focus his attention on these embarrassing images. In contrast, what he was more concerned about was Wang Zhen and Fang Xing in her female form in the lover house. It's the zookeeper. Seeing Wang Zhen in his staff uniform appear, a passerby called out softly. At that moment, the female Fang Xing, who was pretending to be Wang Zhen's girlfriend, was next to him. She was holding a bucket, and Wang Zhen had his arm around her waist as he grabbed fresh fish from the bucket and fed it to her. This scene, which Wang Ling found incomparably painful to the eyes, actually made quite a number of couples who didn't know the truth feel that it was very romantic. My God. The zookeeper is actually holding his girlfriend's waist the whole time. This boyfriend power is just too amazing. As expected of the lover house. Even the zookeeper came with his girlfriend. It's so sweet. Honey, I want to hold your waist too. Separated by the thick glass wall, the two of them talked and laughed, looking unusually intimate. Almost no one could clearly hear what this young couple was talking about. But Wang Ling could hear it clearly. The two of them looked like they were smiling, but were in fact communicating through ventriloquism. Brother Fang, isn't it a little too early for you to act? I don't think Xingyi is here yet. You don't understand, this is the only way it's real enough. I think the atmosphere's pretty good now. Once Miss Lu and Gu Xuanji arrive, we'll directly go big. Directly go big? Fake position. Oh, Wang Zhen was enlightened. But why is Brother Fang so skilled? You haven't eaten pork before, but you've seen a pig run. Fang Xing smiled. In fact, he had always planned to enter the entertainment industry, whether it was in a male or female form. As long as he made his debut, Fang Xing believed that he would definitely become an idol. For this reason, Fang Xing had actually read a lot of books on acting, and naturally knew how to fake a kiss. At that moment, outside the glass wall, Wang Ling was once again thunderstruck by what he heard. What the hell? Lu Qingyi and Gu Xuanji were also coming here? Wang Ling was stupefied. Why was the circuit diagram so messy today? But no matter what the hell these two groups were up to, his plan to test out spells couldn't be interrupted. At that moment, Wang Ling's gaze was fixed on one of the couples in the room, and he shook his finger. At that moment, a valiant and familiar figure suddenly leapt into Wang Ling's line of sight. His spell had been aimed at the passers-by. But Wang Ling never expected Lu Qingyi to suddenly rush forward at that moment and block the passers-by couple. Wang Ling, oh ho. It's over. Chapter 1349. The effect of Single's curse was actually to block confessions and reverse psychological effects. As long as the target was under the effect of the spell, all the courtship and confessions that the target received during this period would be reversed. Like would become hate, strong points would become weak points. Take Lotus Sun's confession to Wang Ling as an example. For a previous review, see Chapter 1090, Ways to Attract Attention. The main thing was that Wang Ling hadn't expected Lotus Sun to actually imitate Xia Ming when she had said the word hate. Because of the spell's effect, it had instantly become like. But Wang Ling had now filled in this reverse loophole. That was to say, the current Single's curse wouldn't be in the same situation as last time. Furthermore, Wang Ling had added something else to the mix, which was the psychological reversal effect of Single's curse. When someone confessed, not only would the confessor say the exact opposite of what they wanted to express, they would even slap the other party, fully achieving the characteristics of being single based on ability. It was just that Wang Ling hadn't expected this spell to work on Lu Qingyi. It was really too much of a coincidence. Lu Qingyi actually directly emerged from the crowd and stood in front of that passerby couple, but the problem was that Gu Xuanji and Lu Qingyi were in fact a fake couple. Now, even Wang Ling didn't know what would happen next. In short, the charaba in the lover house today was exceptionally shocking. Even Wang Ling, who was watching from the side in secret, felt like he was shivering. When Lu Qingyi arrived at the lover house, through the glass wall in front of her, she saw Wang Zhen and another strange woman lovey-dovey. A surge of anger instantly bubbled up in her heart. But very quickly, the woman's rationality overcame the flames that suddenly sprang up. Since she could use Gu Xuanji as a fake boyfriend, Wang Zhen could naturally find a woman to pretend to be his fake girlfriend. This guy, what the hell was he doing? Actually, not only wasn't Lu Qingyi angry at this thought, she was actually a little happy. You were pretty angry just now, why now? Gu Xuanji was shocked at how quickly Lu Qingyi's expression changed. Think about it, this idiot actually thinks the same way I do. They all found a fake partner to impersonate in order to make the other party jealous. This proves that our brain circuits are actually quite similar. Lu Qingyi laughed at that moment. Gu Xuanji simply wanted to slap himself when he heard that. Sure enough, he had been too smart for his own good. He shouldn't have told Wang Zhen that Lu Qingyi had asked him to pretend to be her boyfriend. However, things had already developed to this point. Gu Xuanji still wanted to struggle. How can you be sure that the girl inside is fake? What if it's a real girlfriend? Real girlfriend? Lu Qingyi glanced coldly at Fang Xing, who was in female form, and chuckled. In any case, Wang Zhen is the young master of the Wang family. What kind of girl hasn't he seen in the domain of the gods? How could he find such an average-looking girl as his girlfriend? At that moment, Gu Xuanji looked up at the female Fang Xing. In her female form, Fang Xing had a unique style. She absolutely couldn't be called a common face, and her sexy and voluptuous figure made the imaginations of many male cultivators with Dao partners run wild. Is it really that impressive? The corners of Gu Xuanji's mouth twitched. Isn't that impressive? Although I haven't seen this girl before, I feel like I've seen her before. It's as if I've seen her somewhere before. Usually, people who have this kind of look aren't common. Lu Qingyi shrugged, completely disregarding the female Fang Xing as an opponent. Gu Xuanji felt that Lu Qingyi's terror was already indescribable. It could only be said that her King intuition was astonishingly strong. She had actually seen through so many things with just one glance. At that moment, Lu Qingyi suddenly pulled Gu Xuanji's hand forward a little. This angle was just enough for Wang Zhen to see them. She had already noticed that Wang Zhen was already looking in their direction out of the corner of his eye. She immediately looped her arms around Gu Xuanji's neck and began her plan of action. Then, shall we begin? Begin what? Gu Xuanji's face was full of nervousness. His mother was too close to him. So close that Gu Xuanji could hear his mother's breathing and heartbeat. Gu Xuanji turned his face away. He was afraid that if he didn't pay attention, his mother would kiss him, even though Gu Xuanji's first kiss had already been taken away by Lu Qingyi when he was born. But he was already so big now. Of course he couldn't accept his mother's kiss. Logically speaking, don't you keepers of order also know countless people? Why are you so nervous? Lu Qingyi thought Gu Xuanji's reaction was a little funny. Gu Xuanji instinctively dodged backwards. In fact, this wasn't a reaction from a young boy. Instead, it was an instinctive reverence for his biological mother. Unfortunately, in Lu Qingyi's view, Gu Xuanji's reaction was no different from that of a young boy who had just entered the field of love. You're too nervous. Forget it, I won't kiss you. I won't kiss you. Lu Qingyi sighed. She really wanted to kiss Gu Xuanji, and was even going to stick out her tongue. But seeing Gu Xuanji's reaction, she suddenly couldn't bring herself to do it. You're going to kiss me? Gu Xuanji was stupefied. We're both adults. What's wrong with a kiss? Lu Qingyi smiled. At that moment, she glanced at Wang Zhen out of the corner of her eye. Look at the pair inside, they're acting so well. You can say that this borrowing is flawless. You can even tell. Gu Xuanji was astonished again. I've been through this, after all. If it's a real kiss, the surface temperature of their bodies will keep rising, which will dry up the surrounding air and affect the humidity to some extent. I've already reached the point where I can judge whether the other party is really kissing based on the humidity of the surrounding air. Then, little Gu, let's get started. At that moment, Lu Qingyi's gaze fell back on Gu Xuanji's face, and she cupped his cheek. Didn't you say you weren't going to kiss? You're too nervous, and kissing would be too fake. How about this, confess to me, but you have to say it out loud, got it? At that moment, Lu Qingyi gave Gu Xuanji another difficult problem. Confess to his biological mother. Gu Xuanji now particularly regretted agreeing to let Lu Qingyi pretend to be his boyfriend. Confess to his biological mother, that was too outrageous. Are you going to say it or not? Lu Qingyi looked at Gu Xuanji with great pressure. At that moment, Gu Xuanji really couldn't take the pressure anymore, and already had the idea of revealing the truth. But before he could say anything, Lu Qingyi's eyes darkened. Stop dawdling, if you're not going to say it, I'll say it. Then, Gu Xuanji saw, Lu Qingyi abruptly cupped his face in her hands and loudly confessed in front of everyone. Bah! You're a two-timing scumbag. Crawl for me. Gu Xuanji. Even Lu Qingyi herself was shocked when she said this. Because this wasn't what she wanted to say at all. But before she could explain, her right hand had already stretched out uncontrollably. Pa! The next moment, there was the crisp sound of a slap. It was Lu Qingyi's slap on Gu Xuanji's face. Gu Xuanji wasn't on guard at all. After being hit by his biological mother, he flew out on the spot, smashed through the glass wall of the lover's house, and smashed into the pool. Splash! For a moment, water splashed everywhere, and a huge column of water shot up. Several sea lions were so frightened that they fainted on the spot. Wang Zhen was alarmed. Hadn't they agreed to pretend to be her boyfriend to make him jealous? Why had Gu Xuanji suddenly become a scumbag? Brother Fang, what's going on? Wang Zhen elbowed Fang Xing. On the side, Fang Xing was also bewildered. I'm very sorry, I don't understand either. Chapter 1350. Wang Ling hadn't expected his singles curse to actually appear like this. Gu Xuanji's entire body was sent flying. In that moment, Wang Ling felt as if all his movements had slowed down. Then, Gu Xuanji made a full 360-degree spin and fell into the water, creating a huge splash. For a moment, the scene in the lover house became chaotic. Lu Qingyi didn't know why she had these thoughts and actions that were completely at odds with her will. Countless people's gazes fell on the chaotic scene. Lu Qingyi covered her face and swiftly fled the scene. What now? Fang Xing was speechless. I'll go take a look, then what about Gu Xuanji? I'll have to trouble Brother Fang to help me look after him. I'll settle the score with him when I come back. All right. Fang Xing nodded. Wang Zhen guessed that Gu Xuanji had most likely done something wrong to Lu Qingyi. Otherwise, how could Lu Qingyi have flipped out on the spot and gotten so angry in front of everyone? Without much time to think, he directly put down what he was doing and directly chased after Gu Xuanji. At the same time, Wang Zhen was also wondering what kind of grudge there was between Lu Qingyi and Gu Xuanji. He recalled what Lu Qingyi had shouted just now. Two-timing? What did that mean? Was there really something going on between Gu Xuanji and her? In the end, Lu Qingyi had found out? Wang Zhen was furious. The Grand Keeper of Order. How could she do such an absurd thing? When Gu Xuanji climbed out of the water, the aquarium's curator rushed over upon hearing the news. The curator was calculating the damage. The broken glass wall had to be completely replaced. This piece of glass alone would cost $500,000. In addition, there were the 5 sea lions that had fainted from fright floating in the water. Mental compensation was also needed. If they were frightened during mating, it was very likely that this batch of sea lions would have sexual dysfunction. Given that they were mating one-on-one, why would 5 sea lions have mental disorders? The answer was very simple, because 3 of them had chosen to have a meeting together. The rehabilitation costs are a lot of money. At that moment, the goateed curator looked at the scene in front of him with a worried expression. He was holding a calculator in his hand as he calculated the damage. At that moment, Wang Ling stepped forward and patted the curator on the shoulder. Wang Ling hadn't expected things to escalate to this point. Wang Ling felt that Gu Xuanji shouldn't be the only one to bear the cost. This wasn't a small expense, and given his limited pocket money, he definitely couldn't afford it. However, an equivalent exchange could still be conducted. The goateed aquarium director felt someone pat his shoulder, and when he turned his head, he saw Wang Ling's figure. It was the CEO Wang mentioned in the company's report. The curator immediately reacted. He had never seen Wang Ling before. But when he entered the building, he received a notification on his cell phone. Although there were a lot of people in the venue today, Wang Ling was the only high-class customer who could enter through the VIP passage. In addition, there was the VIP location map in Wang Ling's hand. The aquarium curator instantly identified the person. Wang Ling gestured for him to keep quiet, then looked at the mess in front of him. Then, he handed a talisman to the aquarium curator. This was a death substitution talisman that Survival Heavenly Dao had drawn for Lotus Sunday. There were currently more than 60,000 of them in his drawer. This talisman wasn't worth much in Wang Ling's hands, but it was priceless outside. The aquarium curator could be considered a knowledgeable person. He carefully examined the talisman. Very quickly, he recognized that it was probably the legendary death substitution talisman. One talisman was worth hundreds of millions of yuan. Not to mention compensation. He could even build a new aquarium on the side. CEO Wang, wait, the curator hurriedly chased after Wang Ling and led him to a secluded spot. He said to Wang Ling in a low and respectful voice, if these people are CEO Wang's acquaintances, then this museum won't pursue the matter of compensation. CEO Wang's death substitution talisman is priceless. This humble museum is overwhelmed by the favor, and really can't bear it. Wang Ling shook his head. He was the cause of this incident, so compensation for the losses was only right. Furthermore, the death substitution talisman wasn't worth much to begin with. As long as he didn't have to hand over the crispy noodle snacks, everything was fine. The curator didn't dare accept Wang Ling's money, mainly because he was afraid of being blamed by his superiors. But now that he saw CEO Wang in front of him so resolute, he hesitated for a moment. Why don't I accept it first, and then ask my superiors to return it? The curator thought. This was probably the best way to deal with it for now. On the other side, Old Man's son was also extremely moved when he heard what had happened in the aquarium. Wang Ling, Wang Zhen, and the other two were classmates to begin with. Thus, Old Man's son didn't think it was strange that Wang Ling had helped them. In fact, Old Man's son actually didn't care at all about what had happened to Lu Qingyi and the others. All his thoughts were focused on Wang Ling, as expected of classmate Wang Ling. Old Man's son pounded the table in excitement. Who knew how happy he was? Isn't it just helping a classmate compensate money? On the side, Jiang Xiaoche wiped at his sweat. What do you know? Classmate Wang Ling was actually willing to put his life on the line for the sake of a few classmates' emotional disputes at the aquarium. Such loyalty is very much like this old man when I was young. After saying this, Old Man's son flashed his phone. Do you know what this is? This was a photo of a talisman taken by the director of the aquarium. Since the curator didn't know how to deal with the death substitute talisman, he sent it to Old Man's son as soon as he took a photo. This looks like a death substitution talisman. When Jiang Xiaoche saw the photo, he was also shocked. This kid, how can he have this? The price of the death substitute talisman was well known in the industry. Moreover, such a life-saving item was something that some people couldn't even buy with money. Because the number of people who could create such a talisman was extremely limited. Right now, the number of death substitute talismans circulating outside was pitifully small. This death substitution talisman is not something an ordinary person can draw. Given classmate Wang Ling's family background, this old man speculated that this talisman was probably his family heirloom. I never thought that classmate Wang would actually use the death substitute talisman to compensate for the damage to the stadium on behalf of other students. What a silly child. He should know that he's already a high-class VIP of our corporation, so he doesn't have to waste this money, Jiang Xiaoche said with a frown. This is where the problem lies. Student Wang purposely left this death substitute talisman behind because he doesn't want to owe our company a favor. With the value of this death substitute talisman, Student Wang is worthy of being our VIP customer. This shows that Student Wang is a person who understands the ways of the world. At that moment, Old Man's son sighed. Also, look at the photo the curator took. This death substitute talisman is clean and tidy, as good as new. It's as if it was newly drawn. The old man didn't say anything else. A super talisman like the death substitute talisman couldn't be easily drawn. Most of the time, the death substitute talisman was something that high-level almighties knew that they were approaching the end of their lifespans and were unable to break through. These death substitute talismans could then be passed on to their disciples and grand disciples to save their lives at critical moments. Thus, the death substitute talisman was also known as an item of great limit, and was incomparably valuable. What shocked Old Man Sun was, Wang Ling was actually able to preserve his family heirloom as if it was newly drawn. This kind of love and cherishing made Old Man Sun even happier. As expected of the boy that his precious granddaughter Rongrong had taken a fancy to, he was indeed extraordinary. Chapter 1351. Lu Qingyi left the stadium as if she was fleeing. She had never expected things to turn out like this. The sweet and sour carp plan had failed. And she had lost so much face in front of Wang Zhen. The woman felt utterly ashamed and resentful. After leaving the stadium, she immediately sped toward the seaside on her flying sword. Lu Qingyi now felt that she needed to find a place to calm down. Earth wasn't the domain of the gods, and there was no spirit sea. The coast of Songhai City could barely be considered a makeshift place. Wang Zhen was worried sick, and hurriedly took out his spirit sword to follow Lu Qingyi's aura. He flew so fast that he attracted the attention of the traffic police patrolling in the air. "Comrade in front, please stop, you're exceeding the speed limit." The police uncle also followed closely behind Wang Zhen on his sword. But Wang Zhen was really too fast, he couldn't track him at all. In the end, he could only take a photo of Wang Zhen and use big data to search for information. After finding out that Wang Zhen was a number 60 middle school student, the police uncle had a puzzled expression on his face. Could a foundation establishment cultivator be this fast with a sword nowadays? It was too dangerous. But considering that Wang Zhen was a student, the traffic police didn't issue him a huge fine in the end, and instead issued number 60 High a warning letter. When number 60 High resumed school next Monday, criticism and education for Wang Zhen would definitely be unavoidable. Lu Qingyi arrived at the seaside. Before she could calm down, a familiar voice came from far behind her. "Qingyi." It was Wang Zhen's voice. Was this guy here to laugh at her? Lu Qingyi bit her lip and immediately prepared to enter the sea. As an opponent, the woman didn't want Wang Zhen to laugh at her. From a distance, Wang Zhen looked at Lu Qingyi's posture as she prepared to enter the sea, and all his hair stood on end nervously. "Qingyi. Don't." He didn't have time to think at all, and sped up. In the end, when he arrived, Wang Zhen discovered a very serious problem. He couldn't stop. Then, bang! There was a muffled sound. Lu Qingyi felt a figure smash into her spine at a very fast speed. It actually directly rolled her into a ball, and then started to roll forward at a very fast speed. Bye, because Wang Zhen had cut in at a tricky angle. After he and Lu Qingyi crashed into each other, the two of them directly skipped on the surface of the sea. After who knew how many ripples, they finally sank into the sea with a plop. After emerging from the water, Wang Zhen carried Lu Qingyi back to the shore in a princess carry. Wang Zhen put Lu Qingyi down, and she felt a sharp pain in her back. Slow down. Ah. I'm sorry, does it hurt? Wang Zhen was in pain. You idiot. He's so impatient. Lu Qingyi wanted to rebuke him, but when she saw Wang Zhen's worried expression, her voice gradually faded away. I thought you wanted to commit suicide. Wang Zhen rubbed the back of his head with an embarrassed expression on his face. Who would commit suicide for something like this? Besides, this isn't the divine sea. Can the seawater on earth drown us cultivators from the domain of the gods? Lu Qingyi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What do you mean by that? Isn't Gu Xuanji your boyfriend? He's two-timing and hurt you. Wang Zhen's face was filled with rage. Don't worry, when I get back, I'll definitely beat him up. Beat him up? He's a keeper of order, and you're going to beat him up with your head? Lu Qingyi didn't directly expose the truth. Seeing Wang Zhen's interesting reaction, she almost subconsciously followed up on his words. Then I'll go beg Ling Zhenren. There's always a way to deal with scumbags. Even if I have to kneel down in front of Ling Zhenren, I want him to help me. Wang Zhen said with a serious expression. It was said that a man's knees were gold. Given Wang Zhen's temper before he had been trapped on Earth, there was no way he would kneel to anyone. Now, Wang Zhen's temper had indeed changed a lot, and he had become more modest. Besides, the person kneeling was Ling Zhenren, so there was nothing to be afraid of. Pfft! Are you worried about me? She thought Wang Zhen had come to laugh at her, but never thought that this idiot would actually be worried about her. I just can't stand it. Cheating on 2 boats. Why aren't you angry at all? Wang Zhen said stubbornly. Because I was the one who invited Gu Xuanji to act in the first place. Lu Qingyi finally revealed the truth. Actually, those words and that slap weren't my intention. At the time, it felt like I was a little out of control, like I was possessed. So the reason you ran away was, idiot. I thought you chased me out to laugh at me, said Lu Qingyi. She reached out to wrap her arms around Wang Zhen's neck and pull his face down a little. At that moment, his clothes were already soaked in seawater and he was covered in sand. For a moment, it was a charming scene. Even with the sound of the waves crashing against the shore, Wang Zhen could still clearly hear his own heartbeat. The throbbing of his heart like a monkey and a galloping horse left both of them absent-minded. Then, Wang Zhen cupped Lu Qingyi's cheeks and kissed her fiercely. Nothing needed to be said, in the distance. Looking at this scene, Gu Xuanji felt that the situation was hopeless. These 2 people were together, then, he might also cease to exist. Gu Xuanji was even prepared for the worst-case scenario of him disappearing. But the strange thing was, his body actually hadn't disappeared. Gu Xuanji was sure that he hadn't mistaken his mother for someone else. The Lu Qingyi in front of him was definitely his real mother, so, what was going on now? Gu Xuanji frowned. There was probably no one who could give him an answer now. It was Ling Zhenren. Wang Zhen took Lu Qingyi to the hospital. He confirmed that the impact just now hadn't affected Lu Qingyi at all. Then, they returned to the staff apartment. In the elevator, their fingers were tightly intertwined. I told you it would be fine. This bit of impact can't hurt me. Lu Qingyi said, see, the money was wasted, wasn't it? Heartache? I'm not that petty. In any case, there's no harm in checking, at least I know that your body can withstand an impact. Wang Zhen smiled and whispered in her ear, maybe the impact will be even more violent in the future. You're an adult, don't be serious. Lu Qingyi blushed. After all, Wang Zhen had already been given a speeding ticket today. Ding! At that moment, the elevator doors slowly opened, and Lu Qingyi saw a lot of employees in Huaguo Water Curtain Group's uniforms moving things into the house under the direction of an old auntie. Did you buy something online? Wang Zhen was puzzled. No. I didn't buy it. Lu Qingyi shook her head. At that moment, the old auntie in charge of the scene came over and bowed to Lu Qingyi with a smile. Hello, Miss Lu, I'm Qiu Shuyun, the head maid under eldest Miss Lotus Sunday. Everyone calls me Auntie Qiu. Hello, Auntie Qiu. Lu Qingyi nodded. So, what's going on now? This is a master-disciple gift that Miss Lotus Sun asked us to deliver, Auntie Qiu said with a smile. Master-disciple gift. Lu Qingyi was startled. Miss Lotus Sun already knew everything over the phone. She also said that Shifu Lu is very scheming, and that she has a lot to learn from. From now on, our young lady's happiness will depend on Shifu Lu. Chapter 1352. Wang Ling had expected Gu Xuanji to come and beg him. After all, if a person didn't have no other choice, there was no way he would agree to be his mother's fake boyfriend. Wang Zhen and Lu Qingyi were in love, and Wang Ling calculated their relationship lines. This was a happy ending. That was to say, there was no possibility of them breaking up later on. Given this premise, there was a big question as to why Gu Xuanji could continue to exist. He was someone who had transmigrated from the future, and his initial goal had been to stop Wang Zhen and Lu Qingyi's relationship, but things had turned out contrary to his wishes. I actually didn't expect them to progress so quickly. After all, there's still some time before my dad comes back from his trip to the galaxy. My parents got to know each other after my father returned from his trip to the galaxy. In Wang Ling's bedroom, Gu Xuanji sat on his knees in front of him and sighed. Jinren, I can only rely on you now. Also, I suspect that someone put a curse on me when my mom slapped me today. If it's convenient for you, Jinren, could you also help investigate this? Wang Ling looked a little hesitant. After all, he was the culprit behind the whole thing. His initial goal had just been to test out Single's curse and give it a good job. He hadn't expected things to get out of hand. Furthermore, the memory loss restriction hadn't been activated. This was probably because Gu Xuanji and Lu Qingyi weren't a real couple. Wang Ling's original purpose for setting up the memory loss mechanism was to prevent couples from separating. But now, not only had Lu Qingyi and Wang Zhen not separated because of Single's curse, they were together. Thus, the memory loss mechanism hadn't worked as it should. Seeing Wang Ling's hesitant expression, Gu Xuanji thought that he had made too many demands, which had made Wang Ling unhappy. Thus, he hurriedly corrected himself. My matter is more important. Ling Jinren, if you think it's too troublesome to investigate the person who put the curse on you, I can investigate it myself. I'll definitely make that person come out and apologize in person. Wang Ling didn't doubt Gu Xuanji's investigative abilities as a keeper of order. But he had to get to the bottom of this matter as soon as possible. Fortunately, he was prepared. While Gu Xuanji was speaking, a branch quietly stuck out from the toilet in Wang Ling's bedroom. Pa! A heavy blow landed on the back of Gu Xuanji's head. I didn't let you down. The physical amnesia technique is a success. This was a tree branch that could speak. After confirming that Gu Shan had fainted, it let out a bell-like laughter. Wang Ling had already anticipated that Gu Xuanji would come, so he had permanently strengthened a branch of the cosmic god tree for the physical amnesia spell. Why was it permanent? Wang Ling felt that he might need miss you in the future. The physical amnesia spell was very simple, and Wang Ling could do it himself. It was just that he couldn't be precise, and attacking the head might send it flying. The reason why they had set their sights on the cosmic god tree was also because, working with Lord Ma, the cosmic god tree could now extend its branches wherever it wanted. This way, it would be much easier for him to use the physical amnesia spell. As long as he summoned the cosmic god tree in his mind, a strengthened branch would instantly appear on the back of the target's head and whip it. Most importantly, Miss Yu's control over her strength was outstanding. Not only would there not be any sequelae after being drained, but there would also be no repercussions. The psionic energy of the divine tree on the branches could even seep into the cerebral cortex, making those who had been sucked feel refreshed after they woke up. Roughly 10 seconds later, Gu Xuanji woke up. His complexion was clearly much better than before he had arrived at the Wang family's small villa. Gu Xuanji had no idea what had just happened. It was as if he was just in a daze. After his consciousness returned, he saw Wang Ling earnestly helping him sort out the timeline. Ling Jinren is such a good person. Gu Xuanji sighed in his heart. Wang Ling, according to the clues provided by Gu Xuanji, his father, Gu Cheng, had only met Lu Qingyi after returning from a trip. Their relationship quickly warmed up, and soon, they gave birth to him. The matter of Gu Cheng coming to the Divine Realm's Lu family to propose marriage was also recorded in the Divine Realm's history. After the two families united by marriage, the Lu family's position among the 10 great families of the God domain could be said to have taken a meteoric rise. Very quickly, the Lu family rushed to the 3rd place, making a fool out of the Zhou family, who was originally ranked 3rd. In order to prove that what he said was true, Gu Xuanji also produced a lot of photographic evidence. The alluring woman in the photo was, without a doubt, Lu Qingyi herself. After the two of them got married that day, rumor had it that Wang Zhen was disheartened and never returned to the Divine Realm again, At first glance, this seemed to be the case, but Wang Ling felt that there might be more to it than meets the eye. My lord. My lord. I have something to say. At that moment, Book of Sage Immortal's voice rang out. Wang Ling had casually stuffed Book of Sage Immortal into Lord Ma's mouth last time, and it looked like he had already reflected on his actions. But death could be spared, but punishment couldn't be forgiven. Wang Ling had never given up on giving Book of Sage Immortal away. Is this Lord Holy Book? Gu Xuanji turned his head and bowed. Based on the timeline, I already have a reasonable answer, said Book of Sage Immortal. He planned to speak out his reasoning in exchange for a chance to atone for his crimes. Lord Holy Book already has an answer? Gu Xuanji was startled. That's right. Book of Sage Immortal said, everyone thought that Wang Zhen was disheartened after losing Lu Qingyi, so he left the divine realm of the gods and never came back. In that case, is there another possibility that Wang Zhen and the real Miss Lu eloped? The real Miss Lu? The corners of Gu Xuanji's mouth twitched in shock. After all that trouble, it turned out that his mother was a fake? Impossible. I definitely didn't mistake my mother for someone else. Gu Xuanji retorted. I used my tracking privilege as a keeper of order to secretly mark my mother's soul with a soul imprint, and then tracked her here. There's no way I was wrong. Indeed, you weren't wrong. But you also have to remember that if the target you marked is an object produced by the original body, then when you track it, the mark will fall back on the original body before the target is produced. Although Book of Sage Immortal's words were very hard to pronounce, Gu Xuanji already seemed to understand what was going on. Lord Holy Book means, from the very beginning, the one your father liked was Miss Lu's shadow. And your mother is also Miss Lu's shadow. It's just that at this time, Miss Lu's shadow hasn't awakened yet. So the mark you made in the future will ultimately fall back on Miss Lu's original body. So that's how it is. Gu Xuanji was lost in thought. This deduction is correct 78% of the time. After saying this, Book of Sage Immortal sighed. If it wasn't for the fact that my lord is a single dog, which affects some of my judgment on emotions, the accuracy would be even higher. Wang Ling, question mark. Wang Ling, question mark. Chapter 1353. Gu Xuanji hadn't expected the truth to be like this. It turned out that he was the child of Lu Qingyi's shadow. Gu Xuanji's mood immediately became complicated when he heard this result. Even if the shadow had awakened spiritual intelligence, it was still a manifestation of the original body. Since this was the case, Lu Qingyi's shadow could in fact also be called Lu Qingyi's daughter. Because of this, the relationship between him and Lu Qingyi's original body seemed to become even more complicated. Before this, Gu Xuanji had always regarded Lu Qingyi's original body as mom. But in fact, he should be calling her grandma. You look like you're in a complicated mood. At that moment, Book of Sage Immortal said, but it's not incomprehensible. After all, your mother has suddenly become your grandma. There's bound to be a sense of difference. You should be more open-minded. Having an old person at home is like having a treasure. Gu Xuanji, Wang Ling. When Gu Xuanji returned to the staff apartment that day, he had just arrived at the door when he found Lu Qingyi holding Wang Zhen's arm as they chatted and laughed as they waited at the elevator door. The two of them dressed lightly and looked like they were about to go out as they interacted intimately. Gu Xuanji wanted to say something, but stopped himself. It was mainly because he was hesitating between calling her grandma and mom, and didn't know which was better. I know, brother Gu. Don't be sad. At that moment, Wang Zhen looked up at Gu Xuanji and patted him on the shoulder sympathetically. Although Gu Xuanji was a keeper of order, he usually lived together in Wang Zhen's house and didn't put on any airs, so Wang Zhen and Gu Xuanji also called each other brother. Now, Gu Xuanji's mood became even more complicated as he stared at the grandfather, who called him brother. What do you know? Qingyi said that you have a serious Oedipus complex, said Wang Zhen. Don't worry, since I'm with Qingyi, I'll definitely keep my mouth shut about this. I won't tell anyone else. Wang Zhen said, keepers of order are under a lot of pressure, so it's normal for them to have some quirks. I heard my dad talk about even stranger cases before. There was a keeper of order who had been single for a long time, so his shadow was pretty. He actually had desires for a woman's shadow. Gu Xuanji didn't want to continue discussing this topic and quickly changed the topic. Where are you going now? It's like this, Qingyi and I have discussed it, and we've decided to look at some houses and move out. Are you rich now? Qingyi is now Miss Lotus Sun's Shifu. Miss Sun said that as long as it's a property under Huaguo Water Curtain Group, you can just tell her if you like any property. Then. I wish you happiness, Gu Xuanji said. Then, he walked to his bedroom without looking back. Logically speaking, he shouldn't be feeling so down. Since he knew that his mother wasn't Lu Qingyi herself, he should be happy. However, too many things had happened today, and the amount of information was too much. For a moment, Gu Xuanji felt like he had indigestion. What happened to him? Wang Zhen was a little puzzled by Gu Xuanji's reaction. In any case, the three of us are from the domain of the gods. If we leave just like that, wouldn't it be bad to leave him here? Lu Qingyi said worriedly. You're right. Then we can just find him a roommate, Wang Zhen said. You mean Zhao Qingxian? In any case, we've already moved out and are together, so there's nothing to be afraid of. Wang Zhen suddenly hugged Lu Qingyi like a giant wolf dog. This fatty has never been a law-abiding person in the domain of the gods. In any case, old Gu is a keeper of order. I believe Zhao Qingxian won't act too rashly under the watchful eyes of a keeper of order. You're right. Lu Qingyi nodded. Also, I remember that the Zhao family also runs a beast shop in the domain of the gods. He can also help Wei Ji. At the very least, he's much better than us two idiots. Wang Zhen laughed. Where's Zhao Qingxian now? I asked around before. He's suspicious because he's an unregistered resident. He's still in the detention center. Okay. I'll call Rongrong later and have her arrange for someone to get Zhao Qingxian here. What do you want to eat tonight? Western or Chinese? Wang Zhen asked. Either is fine. Lu Qingyi smiled. Then, barbecue? That's too oily. Is there anything else? Hot pot? Hot pot is so boring, it's all sauce. Then what do you think? Either is fine. Thursday, December 3rd. It was the day Lotus Sun was officially discharged from the hospital. At her request, the old man chose to keep a low profile. He didn't make a big deal out of it, nor did he find a bunch of reporters to hold a press conference or something like that. After experiencing this incident, old man Sun truly felt that his precious granddaughter seemed to have matured a lot. She had become more prudent in doing things. It's said that classmate Wang Ling likes to keep a low profile. I'm afraid that Rongrong has also been influenced by him. In the car, old man Sun was actually very pleased. Everyone had been young once. Under the basic conditions of being in love, one's behavior would also lean toward the person they liked, and then some changes would occur. For example, if a person who wasn't good at academics fell in love with a straight-A student, then perhaps they would put a lot more effort into their studies. Doing your best to keep in step with the person you liked was also part of being in love. Hence, old man Sun was very clear about his own position in Lotus Sun's pursuit of Wang Ling. He could only be a long-range support, and couldn't interfere too much. Furthermore, he couldn't use his own company's wealth and power to disrupt classmate Wang Ling's life. Not only would this cause trouble for Wang Ling, it would also thwart his precious granddaughter's plans. Rongrong, you can do it. Old man Sun couldn't help cheering in his heart as he watched the girl walk into the villa. Old master, where are we going now? To battle sect. I have an appointment with Director Zhua. Okay. The driver nodded and quickly stepped on the gas. Back in her bedroom, Lotus Sun saw that the furniture that had been burned down by the great sacrificial spell had been restored, and were all newly bought, just as they had been before she left. Knowing that Lotus Sun was being discharged today, Auntie Chiu had ordered the exact same furniture in advance, and had someone install it overnight. Thank you, Auntie Cho. Lotus Sun smiled politely at Auntie Cho. Miss, you're too kind. This is something this old one should do. I have other things to do. If Miss needs anything else, just give me a call. Okay. Lotus Sun nodded. She saw Auntie Cho respectfully withdraw and close the door. She couldn't wait to turn on her computer. There were too many things recorded in the cloud disk. The girl had only seen less than 10% of them in the hospital. And now. Those, when she was in her soul state. Bits and pieces of memories that she had personally recorded in her little notebook. In an instant, all of them had been released. Chapter 1354. Lotus Sun connected her laptop to the printer and printed out all the sketches she had drawn. They were of Wang Ling's face from various angles, and in just a few minutes, her desk was covered with them. I actually drew so many sketches of classmate Wang Ling. The girl blushed and shyly buried her face in the pile of paper. Although they were all sketches of Wang Ling, none of them were complete. This was because Lotus Sun had learned about the Great Shielding Spell from Ajua in the Buddha Golden Lotus. Once the protective mechanism was activated, her sketches would turn into a pile of mosaics. So in order to prevent this from happening, Lotus Sun hadn't finished the sketches. Classmate Wang Ling with ellipses on his face was also very cute. The girl flipped through the portraits and saw a few sketches that she had highlighted. She remembered now. She had drawn them on Palm Cliff, Heaven Puppet. In addition to the pictures, there were also some words she had written. Today, a groundhog brought me to Earth 1 second later, but I didn't feel the slightest bit afraid. Because I believed that classmate Wang Ling would definitely come to save me. Don't be afraid, I'm coming, classmate Wang Ling. The message you left for me in the shadow may be 2 sentences I will never forget. Then, you broke free of all the shadows and appeared in my world like light. What I wrote is too mushy. The girl blushed as she finished reading the words in the pictures. She couldn't believe that she had actually written something like this. She couldn't bear to read any more, but curiosity kept driving her to flip through the messages left behind. Senior Ajua, he actually called me Master's wife. It was a picture of her returning to Battle Sect after Wang Ling had rescued her from the groundhog. Like a weeping beauty, Ajua had thrown himself at her and loudly called her Master's wife in front of everyone. This incredible scene appeared in her mind as her memories kept coming back to her. In a split second, 2 streams of hot steam gushed out of her ears. I have to cool you down. Otherwise, it will be dangerous. Sun Yinger appeared and obediently sat on the edge of the soft bed, swinging her slender legs. Release steam from your ears. This was the effect of the cooling spell, and Sun Yinger would perform it on his behalf depending on the situation. Lower the temperature, your temperature is too high now. A girl in love has to keep a cool head at all times in order to win in the end, right? Sun Yinger giggled. That stinky Wang Ying wants me to protect you. So sometimes, some necessary measures will be taken. You're still protecting me? Aren't you always being bullied by Wang Ying? Lotus Sun also laughed. Bully? No way. I will definitely turn over and become the master, and fight with him to the end. Sun Yinger said resolutely. But as she said this, she suddenly felt that her body was indeed a little uncomfortable. It was all because Wang Ying's planet-knocking art was too powerful yesterday. You don't feel well? Do you need me to give you a massage? Great. Rongrong is the best. Mua. Sun Yinger rushed over and kissed Lotus Sun on the cheek. It's all this Death King's shadow's fault. 406 times. Finished in one night. My back hurts from the collision. Lotus Sun, Sun Yinger, hey. Rongrong. Why is your face red again? Ha. Eat my cooling spell. Elsewhere in Battle Sect, Old Man Sun and Ajua had arranged to meet in the true venerated Great Hall. After exchanging greetings, they took their seats. A Battle Sect disciple came over to serve them tea. After the tea was served, the disciple tactfully withdrew and closed the door. He made sure that no one would disturb them in the great hall. Director Joie, I'm here today for one thing only. I'm a straightforward person, and I don't beat around the bush, so I hope that you can be honest with me. Old Man Sun smiled. As for the benefits, I'm sure you'll get them as well. I know that the Alliance of 10,000 Schools is about to elect a new leader. If you don't hide anything from me, I'll do my best to garner votes for you. Audra smiled. Mr. Sun, you're exaggerating. Sugar-coated bullets don't work on me. I want to hear your question first. If it involves a friend's secret, I naturally won't say a word. As expected, Director Joie is a loyal man. Old Man Sun nodded. What he had said just now was just a test, and Audra indeed hadn't disappointed him. Actually, whether or not he got the answer he wanted from Audra, Old Man Sun would still help him in canvassing for votes. He knew that Audra had also put in a lot of effort behind the scenes in Lotus Sun's matter this time. There was no way he, Sun Yuan, would not return this favor. Don't worry, Director Joie. What I want to discuss this time isn't your friend's secret. It's Director Joie's own secret. Old Man Sun smiled. Audra's expression froze slightly at these words. His secret was none other than his relationship with Wang Ling. Could it be that he had already been exposed? That shouldn't be the case. Audra frowned. So, Mr. Sun, what do you want to ask? In such a short period of time, Director Joie was able to rise to the position of Director of the General Administration of 10,000 Schools and repeatedly perform miraculous feats. He is deeply favored by Secretary Sun of the Alliance of 10,000 Schools. In fact, I'm here this time to find out more about student Wang Ling, Old Man Sun, so, I need to confirm whether the relationship between Director Joie and student Wang Ling isn't as simple as it seems on the surface. Audra's expression darkened. Student Wang Ling and I are just a normal senior and junior brother. The same as student Lotus Sunday, not necessarily, Director Joie. At that moment, Old Man Sun chuckled. Since I'm here today, I'm definitely prepared. I never fight when I'm unprepared. I'm certain that Director Joie and student Wang Ling's relationship isn't as simple as it seems. Joie, where on earth did you get this information, Mr. Sun? It's just the result of a precise analysis of the information I've gathered. Hearing this, Old Man Sun chuckled. So, Director Joie, just admit it. Joie feigned ignorance. Admit what? Old Man Sun, you. Student Wang Ling Shifu. Am I right? Joie. P.S. I've seen your reaction regarding the issue of blocking the Immortal King web version. This is actually an anti-piracy measure. If you want to be the first to see updates, you can only do so through the Chidian reading app. I know that there are a lot of Immortal King chapters, and some of you can't afford to read pirated versions. I hope you don't publicize it, and can just read it secretly. But if you've caught up with the latest chapters, I hope you can come to the original version and spend a few cents a day to support Pai Pai Ku's creation. The more readers there are of the original version, the better the motivation to create. _ smiley face angle _ Chapter 1355. Audra felt that this might be the biggest scapegoat he had ever carried in his life. It could only be said that Old Man Sun was in the end Old Man Sunday. This ability to avoid the right answer, it turned out that you were the legendary ultimate Maori Little Wulong. At least there were times when Little Wulong got it right, but Audra realized that the amazing thing about Old Man Sun was that he always seemed to be able to perfectly avoid all the right answers. Who would have thought that I would still be found out? At that moment, Audra rested his chin on his fingers and leaned forward with his elbows on his knees, pretending to be deep in thought. Now that things had come to this, he couldn't deny it. Although this was a huge scapegoat, now that things had come to this, he could only accept it. In the end, Director Joie admitted it. Old Man Sun looked like he had everything under control. He was absolutely confident that he would be able to make Audra admit to this matter, mainly because he had enough evidence on hand. How did Mr. Sun find out about this? Audiobook was very curious about this. You and classmate Wang have known each other for a long time, perhaps even before number 60 High's first Spirit Sword Exchange meet. As for what happened that day at the Spirit Sword Exchange meet, I specifically asked Rongrong about it. Old Man Sun began to make a brilliant deduction. Rongrong said that in your solo Spirit Sword performance, you chose classmate Wang's Peachwood Sword at first glance. This was actually a subconscious action, which means that the relationship between the two of you is no trivial matter. Audiobook, is there any other evidence? Of course there is. Old Man Sun nodded. Director Zhua defeated the Demon King Sky-swallowing toad back then, and now that toad has turned into a dog. There are so many students at number 60 High, so why did this dog stay at classmate Wang Ling's house? It's obvious that this is your greeting gift to classmate Wang Ling. It's true that this toad is a Demon King, but you were the one who defeated it back then, so it definitely listens to everything you say. By putting it at classmate Wang Ling's house, you're actually protecting him. Old Man Sun laughed. This kind of master's concern for his disciple is a little too obvious. Hearing this, the corners of Audiobook's mouth twitched. Mr. Sun is really smart and brave. Of course, there's also the decisive evidence, which is Director Zhua's close visit to classmate Wang Ling's house. Mr. Sun is following me? Audiobook frowned. It can't be considered tracking. It's just some technical methods. Old Man Sun said lightly, the metal pin to Director Zhua's chest actually has a tracking function. In the past, your badge location has frequently appeared at classmate Wang Ling's house. I'm afraid this has already surpassed the relationship between a senior and a junior, right? Hearing this, Audiobook already couldn't help applauding. As expected of Mr. Sun, your reasoning ability leaves me in the dust. It's just some insignificant tricks. I was able to sit in this position because of my extraordinary reasoning ability. Old Man Sun couldn't help but sigh when he said that. In the past, he was dealing in elixirs. Now, he was dealing in stocks. Elixirs were considered a physical industry, and now there were fully automated production machines. Other than rare elixirs, most elixirs could be produced automatically by machines, and there was not much manual skill involved. Over time, Sun Yiyuan started to learn how to analyze stocks. The stock market was still the most exciting. Thanks to his logical analysis, Huaguo Water Curtain Group had made a lot of money in the last few years. Director Zhua, if you're interested, you can listen to my stock lessons. Of course, these are top secret lessons for the group. Old Man Sun knows about stocks. It's just some insignificant analysis, and it's Jiang Xiaoche who's in charge. It's my secretary whom Director Zhua met earlier. Zhua, although he didn't dare be 100% sure. He could roughly guess that this Jiang Xiaoche had most likely done the opposite of what Old Man Sun had said. Zhua couldn't help sighing in his heart. It really wasn't easy for Huaguo Water Curtain Group to grow to such a scale. He smiled bitterly. Mr. Sun came to confirm your identity with me today to ask about my disciple. Zhua braced himself as he said this. At the same time, he moaned and cried out in his heart, hoping that Wang Ling wouldn't blame him. Shifu. Disciple really didn't mean to take advantage of you. Even your father-in-law came to investigate. Disciple has to take the blame. Sun Yiyuan was delighted to hear this. He had long known that Zhua was a sensible person. It was also for this reason that he was deeply liked by Secretary Sunday. In fact, Sun Yiyuan felt that even if he didn't help Zhua pull in votes, he would sooner or later be able to sit at the top of the alliance on his own. I knew that Director Zhua was a smart man. Old Man Sun was overjoyed. What this old man wanted to ask isn't anything important. I just wanted to ask about classmate Wang Ling's hobbies. Or, his family's hobbies. Crispy noodle snacks, said Zhua. What? Sun Yiyuan thought he had heard wrong. It's a small snack, so that's how it is. Old Man Sun sighed. No wonder when classmate Wang went to the hospital to see how my family's Rongrong was doing, he didn't even look at the high-end snacks I had people prepare. Zhua smiled. But ordinary crispy noodle snacks are already very difficult to catch my disciple's eye. That's easy, I can find someone to order them. I'll hire the best noodle chef in the world to make them on the spot. Mr. Sun is really generous, but if you really do this, my disciple might be disgusted, I know. Old Man Sun said, classmate Wang likes to keep a low profile. I'll have a noodle chef appear next to him without anyone noticing. Jua, Sunny Yuan, then, what do classmate Wang's parents like? Jua, my disciple's father is an online entrepreneur. Oh. I know that. Monthly votes. Recommendation votes. Tips. Old Man Sun was excited. What's his pen name? I can arrange it for him right now. His pen name is Wang Situ. So he's Wang Situ. Old Man Sun was startled. Given his relationship with the head of state, he naturally knew that the latter had been chasing after the writings of someone called Wang Situ. It was just that Sunny Yuan had never expected the world to be so small. This Wang Situ was actually classmate Wang Ling's father. Chapter 1356. Jua hadn't expected Old Man Sun to be so concerned about his shifu. However, after the conversation, he felt that there was no need to be too wary of Sunny Yuan. Old Man Sun was indeed a deductive genius, but he was also someone who knew how to take care of other people's feelings. It was precisely because he knew his master's low-key personality that he had specially arranged for a time to ask him about the situation. Otherwise, with Old Man Sun's temper, he would have visited his in-laws with many bags. Strategy was a long-term plan. Feelings needed to be nurtured slowly. Old Man Sun understood this principle. The more he wished for his precious granddaughter to be able to truly obtain happiness, the more he wished for her. The more one couldn't use money and sugar-coated bullets to try to buy other people's feelings. This was an impolite behavior, and it was also a kind of disrespect to others. Thank you, Director Zhua. My trip today wasn't in vain. I understand everything now. Before he left, Old Man Sun bowed respectfully to Zhua. Director Zhua, please rest assured about what happened today. Heaven and earth will know. I'll keep everything to myself. Mr. Sun, you're too polite. Zhua smiled and returned the salute with cupped fists. Old Man Sun laughed out loud and shouted, Immortal luck prospers. Then he flicked his sleeves and left. Looking at Old Man Sun's retreating back, Zhua heaved a long sigh of relief. Are you sure Brother Ling won't be angry? Grenade-throwing senior Immortal walked out of the office. He had been eavesdropping on the side for a long time. As long as we have crispy noodle snacks, everything is negotiable. Mr. Sun is a smart man, he should have some tricks up his sleeve. Zhua rubbed his chin. In fact, he didn't dare to guarantee what would happen next, elsewhere, Songhai First Military Medical Hospital. After being locked up for several days, Lotus Sun arranged for Zhao Qingxian to be bailed out and admitted to the hospital for a checkup. Earth was too dangerous. He had only just arrived here and had not done anything, yet he was already accused of forcibly molesting a male. How tragic could it be? Mr. Zhao, because we haven't been able to find your identity information so far, you are still under our strict surveillance. Before the bed, a police officer said with a solemn expression, after all the checks are done, you will be restricted to our specific apartment. You will be supervised by a special supervisor. Zhao Qingxian, then when can I get rid of the suspicion? That's hard to say. The police officer spread his hands and stared at Zhao Qingxian. Behave yourself. A doctor will come over later to examine your body. He wasn't worried that Zhao Qingxian would run away because Zhao Qingxian had the spirit shackles on his ankles. With most of his spiritual power restricted, Zhao Qingxian had nowhere to go. Helpless, Zhao Qingxian could only lie down obediently. As soon as the police officer left, Zhao Qingxian saw a seriously ill patient covered in bandages being pushed to the bed next to him by a female nurse. This person was none other than Fan Xing. After several surgeries by the hospital, Fan Xing's recovery was relatively good, but there was still a long time before he could fully recover. Of course, even if Fan Xing made a full recovery afterwards, Fan Xing was destined to have no happiness in his life. Brother? Bro? Zhao Qingxian tried to talk to Fan Xing. It wasn't because he was bored, but because he felt that he had found an opportunity from Fan Xing. Now, he was being inexplicably monitored by the police and had even been charged with a groundless crime. With such a serious crime on him, his plans on Earth would be greatly hindered. In addition, the spirit shackles on his ankles suppressed most of his spiritual power. It definitely wouldn't be easy for him to escape. But in any case, he was a domain of the gods cultivator. Even with the 2 anklet versions of the spirit shackles, it was still possible to cast some small spells. Now, Fan Xing's body was ravaged and he was delirious, but this gave Zhao Qingxian a sliver of an opportunity. So, I can only try. Temporary soul-switching technique? Zhao Qingxian suddenly had a plan in his mind. This spell was actually a simplified version of the possession spell. When cast on a delirious person, the success rate would be greatly increased. Once it was cast successfully, the soul exchange effect would be realized within 72 hours. So, it didn't matter even if the person wasn't satisfied with the body. After 72 hours, the body would be swapped back. This was a simple body-swapping game. Zhao Qingxian used a simple spell to determine that Fan Xing wasn't completely immobile, it was just that his depression was hindering his movements. As for the specific situation, he just had to wait for the soul exchange to be completed and personally appraise it. He still had some pills that could help Fan Xing recover from his injuries quickly. These were all life-saving items he had brought from the domain of the gods, and their effects couldn't be compared to those on Earth. This wasn't the first time he had thought of leaving this fat body. Zhao Qingxian had ingested a lot of sugar since he was young because of the half-moon robe Shengongli. This caused Zhao Qingxian's body to expand abnormally, to the point where he couldn't control or restrain himself anymore. The rules in the domain of the gods were strict, and Zhao Qingxian had never dared think of possessing someone. Now, on Earth, he had found an opportunity. Moreover, Fan Xing's facial features were fine. If he used this face to seduce Lu Qingyi, Zhao Qingxian felt that not only could he hide his identity, but he could also greatly increase his chances of success. Bro. I'm sorry. Zhao Qingxian thought about it. In the end, he finally made up his mind to make a move on Fan Xing. Fan Xing saw Zhao Qingxian reach out to him. His first reaction was naturally to struggle. But it was already too late. In an instant, a dazzling light burst out from the top of their heads. The soul exchange was complete. Fan Xing's soul returned to Zhao Qingxian's body, but his hand was still on Fan Xing's body. The young police officer turned pale with fright when he entered and hurriedly pulled Zhao Qingxian away. You pervert. I knew you wouldn't even let a man off. Fan Xing, who had been swapped into Zhao Qingxian's body, felt very wronged. He couldn't speak at all because Zhao Qingxian had cast a silent spell on him before the soul exchange, so Fan Xing couldn't speak for a while. Success. Zhao Qingxian had successfully seized Fan Xing's body. But after a simple inspection, the smile on Zhao Qingxian's face gradually froze. F***ck. This man actually didn't have balls. He had suffered a loss this time. Chapter 1357. The reason why the Zhao family was able to establish a foothold in the divine realm and rank in the top 10 was because of this. In fact, it was also due to the various strange techniques that the Zhao family had mastered. To put it bluntly, it was because their imagination was too wild, resulting in the increase of all kinds of strange knowledge. Then, based on the foundation of the heavenly Tao, they developed some strange spells. Some of these spells were very strong, but some were also very weak. After many years of experimentation, the head of the Zhao family had naturally mastered countless strange spells. Although Zhao Qingxian was his legitimate son, he was ignorant and incompetent. However, because he was ignorant and incompetent. Even though he had inherited many things from him, most of them were just second-rate weapons. At this moment, Zhao Qingxian, who had swapped his soul into Fan Xing's body, was slightly at a loss for what to do in front of him. Fan Xing's facial features were passable. But as a man, he lacked important equipment. It still wouldn't work. However, after the temporary soul-swapping spell was activated, it couldn't be used repeatedly. He had to wait for the spell to expire before his body would automatically switch back. However, Zhao Qingxian couldn't wait any longer. He pulled out the various infusion tubes in his body and picked up the storage ring on the ground. This ring had been deliberately thrown in the corner by Zhao Qingxian before he swapped bodies. Although he had swapped bodies, the soul in Fan Xing's body was still Zhao Qingxian. Therefore, opening the storage ring was simply a piece of cake. Zhao Qingxian took out a heavenly restoration pill that was worth 1 billion immortal gold bars. He sneered. A mere miscellaneous cultivator from Earth, you've really lucked out. He threw the pill into his stomach, and a warm stream of spiritual power flowed out of his blood vessels, nourishing his whole body and repairing his damaged body. Zhao Qingxian could clearly feel that his body's condition was improving. This was a life-saving medicine that he had brought down from the divine realm. He had brought a total of 6 pills. As long as he wasn't instantly killed by a palm strike and was still breathing, this pill would be able to save his life. Although Fan Xing's physical condition was somewhat bad, with all the fractures and meridians in his body. Although they had all been reconnected, to recover from such injuries, with the current level of spiritual medicine on Earth, even if he used the best medicinal herbs to nourish himself every day. Without 2 years of recuperation, it was impossible to recover to the standard of a normal person. But now, a single medicinal pill from Zhao Qingxian had instantly healed his injuries. He was still absorbing the medicine, but Zhao Qingxian could already feel that he had regained his ability to move. Then, he pulled up his pants to take a look, and there was still some disappointment on his face. Even such a miraculous medicine can't regenerate my organs. However, Zhao Qingxian had mastered many strange techniques, so it was not completely impossible to repair it. Looks like I have to make a deal with the river god. He thought of a secret technique. Although it was risky, it was worth a try. In any case, this body wasn't his right now. If it really didn't work, he could just wait for the time limit to run out and choose someone else to swap bodies with. Elsewhere, at the entrance of Lotus Sun's villa, a handsome monk was paying a visit by the huge fountain. Auntie Chiu, who was cleaning in front of the door, bowed very politely when faced with the monk who suddenly appeared. She smiled and said, "Master, if you are here to solicit alms, please follow me." As expected of Miss Lotus Sun's subordinate, Monk Jin Deng performed a Buddhist salute. He had always been polite to well-educated people. "Master, you know my young mistress? My Dharma name is Golden Lamp. Please inform her that I have something important to discuss with Miss Sunday." So it was the young mistress's friend. Qiu Shuyun marveled inwardly at her young mistress's wide circle of friends. "Please wait a moment, master." Auntie Qiu nodded. She immediately went to the door and raised the internal telephone to confirm the situation with Lotus Sunday. In less than half a minute, Auntie Qiu had received a definite answer. She strolled over to the monk and invited him in. The monk was brought directly to Lotus Sun's room by Aunt Qiu. Inside, the young girl was sitting on the sofa, and 2 maids were placing vegetarian pastries and tea on the coffee table. Their movements were swift, and it didn't take long for them to finish arranging everything for the reception. "Leave us. No one is allowed to come in until I call for you," Lotus Sun ordered. "Yes." The 2 maids bowed and then quickly retreated. When there were no outsiders in the room, the monk said, "Miss Sun is still as considerate and thoughtful as ever." Seeing that Miss Sun's complexion has returned to normal, this monk is also much more relieved. "Master, please sit down." Lotus Sun maintained a smile on her face. "I'm grateful for everything you've done for me, that I'm safe and sound this time, Master. I will definitely repay you in the future. What I've done is insignificant. If Miss Sun wants to thank someone, you should thank Ling Jinren." The monk smiled. A monk doesn't ask for anything in return. I didn't come here this time to ask for a gift in return, Miss Sunday. May I ask what is it, Master? Lotus Sun asked. This humble monk came here this time to ask what kind of magic artifact Miss Sun wants. Magic artifact? Miss Sun, have you forgotten? You're the champion of this year's battle sect face-shaping competition, and the first person to pinch Ling Junren's face. As soon as the monk said this, 2 streams of steam whistled out of the young girl's ears like dragons. But very quickly, the young girl's rapidly rising temperature returned to normal under the effect of the spell. Sun Ying'er emerged from the state of a shadow and turned into a real body. She suddenly appeared beside the girl and lay on the girl's knees with her limbs spread out. Monk Jin Dang, I think you should just buy an electric fan for Rongrong. That way I won't have to use the cooling spell on her every day. Don't be rude. Sun Ying'er's blunt personality had always been a headache for Lotus Sunday. You don't have to pay so much attention to etiquette in front of this humble monk. The monk smiled. He looked Sun Ying'er up and down. If it weren't for the difference in hair color and personality, when the two of them sat side by side, the monk felt like he was looking at a pair of twins. Miss Sun can have whatever kind of magic artifact you want. This humble monk can do most of them. At that moment, the monk glanced at her. How about this? This humble monk can give Miss Sun a few directions. Directions? Yes. The monk nodded. Magic artifacts can be classified into 3 types based on their functions. Offensive magic artifacts, defensive magic artifacts, and auxiliary magic artifacts. This humble monk has just deduced that Miss Sun might need an auxiliary magic artifact. What do you mean, Master? Lotus Sun asked curiously. Doesn't Miss Ing have low back pain? This humble monk can create a magic artifact to relieve it, the monk said. But Ing's low back pain was caused by Wang Ying's wall-tapping spell. Although this humble monk has blessed Miss Sun's body, that doesn't mean she can do whatever she wants. What does that have to do with me? The monk said seriously. Then is Miss Sun so sure that she won't hurt in the future? Lotus Sun, ? Chapter 1358. It could only be said that monks were monks after all. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to understand the deeper meaning behind a monk's words. Lotus Sun felt that if even monks became more reserved these days, then no one else would be able to. Miss Sun's face is actually so red, the monk felt that the girl might have thought of something strange. He could actually read minds, but he felt that he had to give the girl in front of him enough respect. It was impolite to casually read minds. But this also made it impossible for the monk to truly understand her thoughts when he faced her. He could only guess to solve the problem. What this monk means is that after this incident, Miss Sun will have to learn how to protect herself. In fact, the auxiliary magic tool I'm talking about isn't just for the waist, it can also be used on other parts of the body, the monk said. From what I see, Rongrong doesn't seem to like it very much. Isn't the best protection from offense? Monk, why don't you upgrade Rongrong's spirit sword? At this time, Sun Ying'er suggested a new idea. Upgrade the spirit sword? The monk nodded. That wasn't a bad choice. Monk, this is my sword. The next moment, she opened her hand, and a beam of azure spirit light shot out from her palm. She summoned Mysterious Sea. After the battle on Nine Dragon Mountain, her Mysterious Sea group had suffered heavy losses. Although the group had already spent a lot of money on cloning, it would still take a long time for them to recover to the original 48 Mysterious Seas. Using the technique of cloning spirit swords to achieve a sword-spirit linkage with the main body, the monk saw through the secret hidden in Mysterious Sea at a glance. This could indeed greatly increase her battle strength, but at the same time, it would also put a huge burden on her body. Controlling so many spirit swords would greatly test the spirit energy and mental strength of the original owner. It was like a computer running multiple programs at the same time overheating. Over time, it might even cause irreversible damage to the body. Miss Sun, in the future, don't use clone swords to perform a sword-spirit linkage. This monk has a better way, the monk said. Although the girl's body had been blessed by him and using the sword spirit linkage technique wouldn't endanger her life, the monk didn't want her to use such a painful method to increase her battle strength. Does the monk have a better suggestion? She asked curiously. I can modify the main body of Mysterious Sea and turn it into a giant sword spirit container. I can have it continuously replicate and clone itself in the container. In this case, it will actually achieve the effect of a sword spirit linkage. The monk said, in fact, I think this is the ultimate evolution. As long as the modification is successful. Miss Lotus Sun's Mysterious Sea will never be destroyed. She only needs to control a single sword to summon billions of Mysterious Seas to do battle. You can do that? Lotus Sun covered her mouth in surprise. She knew how powerful the monk was, so she had no doubt that he could do it. These Mysterious Seas, which are constantly being duplicated in the containers, can also be combined to increase their combat power. As long as there are enough copies and clones, theoretically, Miss Sun's combat strength will have the possibility of unlimited growth. The monk said with a smile, although Miss Sun is only at the Foundation establishment realm, as long as you have this sword, this penniless monk can't guarantee that you can defeat 99% of people on Earth. Then does the remaining 1% belong to Grandmaster and classmate Wang Ling? Lotus Sun smiled. They must have brought us along, but there might be other experts. Tyrant nodded and replied, but to upgrade the Mysterious Sea, I still need 2 more things. What is it? I need Miss Ing to provide me with a law of splitting, the monk said. The idea of upgrading Mysterious Sea into a sword spirit super container was the monk's crazy idea based on Sun Yinger's Shadow Dao ability. However, this matter involved the secret of Sun Yinger's law. Tyrant thought that Sun Yinger wouldn't say it easily. In the end, the white-haired girl in front of him was much more straightforward than the monk had imagined. That's easy. Rongrong and I are one. Helping Rongrong is also helping me. All right then. The monk nodded. As for the second item, it's the Heavenly Dao magic cube that I obtained when I, Ling Zhenren, went to wipe out the unspeakable a while ago. Since Miss Ing has agreed to hand over the nomological patterns, then this matter is settled. But isn't that classmate Wang Ling's thing? Lotus Sun frowned. Wouldn't it be bad to ask for it like this? Ling Zhenren won't refuse. The monk said confidently, the Heavenly Dao magic cube is certainly precious, but in Ling Zhenren's eyes, it's actually worthless. At this point, Monk Jin Deng suddenly paused and turned to look at the girl. Compared with the Heavenly Dao magic cube, Ling Zhenren actually knows very well that he has something more precious. What are you talking about, Great Master? Lotus Sun was a little embarrassed. Miss Sun, no need to be embarrassed. This poor monk thinks that Ling Zhenren will have an epiphany sooner or later. You just need to be a little more patient. Aren't you a monk? Why do you look like you know so much? At that moment, Sun Yinger moved closer and couldn't help asking. Miss Ing, you may not know, but this poor monk was once an emperor. I had a harem of 3,000 beauties, of course I know. Great Master was an emperor? Lotus Sun was stunned. I don't feel anything else, just that my back hurts. Elsewhere, Zhao Qingxian borrowed Fan Xing's body. He snatched a jar of specimens from the hospital's biological dissection room, then quickly left the hospital. His first task was, of course, to fix his own shortcomings. Zhao Qingxian found the river closest to Songhai First Military Medical Hospital, and as soon as he reached it, he couldn't wait to start casting a spell. He was ready to summon the Heavenly Dao River God. This was how cultivators in the domain of the gods generally conducted an equivalent exchange. Usually, it was the Heavenly Dao River God who did this on their behalf. Not everyone had the right to meet the Heavenly Dao Little Golden Man directly for a fair and equivalent exchange. Actually, even though it was called an equivalent exchange, only the Heavenly Dao Little Golden Man could truly achieve it. Compared with the Heavenly Dao Golden Man, most cultivators in the domain of the gods actually couldn't get anything out of the Heavenly Dao River God, but now, Zhao Qingxian had no other choice. River God. River God. Please hear my call. In front of the river, Zhao Qingxian made a hand seal and muttered something. Whoosh! A slender figure soared into the sky from the calm surface of the river, following the sound. A handsome young man with phoenix eyes and long hair wearing a flower hairpin appeared in front of Zhao Qingxian. Droplets of water slid down the young man's well-proportioned muscles, giving off an intoxicating watery glow. His whole body surged with the supreme aura of heavenly Tao, and when he opened his mouth, Zhao Qingxian came back to his senses. Young Zhao Qingxian, did you throw this golden elephant egg or this silver elephant egg? An elephant? Zhao Qingxian was startled. Wasn't the specimen he had stolen a human's? Chapter 1359. Why was there an elephant specimen in the hospital? Zhao Qingxian's face darkened. In the next moment, he began to struggle. At this time, if he did not choose anything, then both the golden and silver eggs would be his. However, the problem was that if these two things were hung below, how could he walk? Even if he could walk, it would be easy for him to get into trouble. For a moment, Zhao Qingxian was in a dilemma. Because if he chose to lie or choose not to accept anything, he would be severely punished by the river god. Therefore, Zhao Qingxian sighed and could only tell the truth. Lord River God, these are not mine. My original intention was, you don't have to explain anymore. The handsome river god with phoenix eyes had already seen through Zhao Qingxian's heart. With a cold expression, he threw the golden and silver eggs in his hands into the river. Then, he looked at Zhao Qingxian with the aura of a boss. Do you understand the rules? Tianyuan Guixin pill. Zhao Qingxian gritted his teeth and took out 2 pills without hesitation. This is my tribute to the river god. 2 pills for 2, huh? Heh, you know what's good for you. The river god raised his finger and swept the 2 pills away. According to the law of equivalent exchange, the parts you lose are actually irreversible. Therefore, when I return the things to you, another part of your body will disappear randomly. But don't worry, the parts that disappear will not affect your life. This, Zhao Qingxian did not expect that he would be in such a situation after losing 2 pills. He wanted to ask the river god to return the pills to him, but the river god's expression quickly turned cold. Do you want to go back on your word? The consequences of going back on your word are very serious. Zhao Qingxian knew that he had no other choice. All right then. I only have one request. I hope that the river god will not make me bald. As for other parts, losing a finger or something is not a problem. You're quite open-minded. The river god chuckled. However, according to the principle of equivalent exchange, the parts that disappear are random. Even I can't control it. You better pray for yourself. As soon as he finished speaking, the aura on the river god's body suddenly changed. A strange feeling of the supreme Tao emanated from his body. The mystery of the mystery of the door. In this place, all sorts of illusions and illusions were born. Feeling the power of the heavenly path river god at such a close distance, Zhao Qingxian felt as if the whole world had calmed down at this moment. In fact, every time he made a deal with the river god of the heavenly way, it was a great opportunity for him to experience the laws of the heavenly way up close. However, the duration of this feeling was too short, and it always gave people a feeling of wanting more. Transaction complete. About 10 seconds later, the river god opened his phoenix eyes again. Zhao Qingxian asked, "Did you succeed?" The river god nodded. "It's a success." Zhao Qingxian excitedly pulled open his pants to take a look. The next moment, it was as if he was struck by lightning. He was extremely shocked by the scene in front of him. Lord River God. The river god raised his eyebrows. "What is it?" Zhao Qingxian roared, "You put the eggs back and took away my youtiao. What's the use of this?" The river deity smiled. "From now on, you are the new old man with eggs." After saying that, he turned into a puddle of water and melted into the river, leaving Zhao Qingxian alone on the riverbank in the wind. Why am I so unlucky after coming to Earth? After who knew how much time had passed, Zhao Qingxian crouched down on the riverbank with his head in his hands. The expression on his face was one of pain, full of the mental breakdown of an adult. All of this was actually just as the monk had said at the beginning. As cultivators in the domain of the gods, life in the domain of the gods was too easy. In order to ensure that the younger generation's cultivation path would be more stable, the elders had paved all kinds of paths for them in advance. They were afraid that these descendants would trip on the road. The overly comfortable life had also caused these cultivators who had walked out of the divine domain to become mentally weak. Wang Zhen, Lu Qingyi, and the others had all suffered losses before. Fortunately, they had also grown very quickly. Their tempering on earth had made their hearts more resolute, their spirits more resilient, and they had become more tactful in handling things. Zhao Qingxian currently didn't have any of this growth. Is it painful? At that moment, a figure appeared behind Zhao Qingxian. This person wore a black cloak and had a neat black buzz cut. He had sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes, and looked like a man who had walked out of a comic book. Zhao Qingxian didn't know this man. But this man seemed to know him, and seemed to know everything about him. The man stretched out his hand, and Zhao Qingxian was stunned by his jade-white hand with distinct fingers. It was hard for him to imagine that a man's hand could be so delicate. The other party stretched out a finger and lightly tapped his forehead. In the next moment, Zhao Qingxian suddenly felt that his missing part had actually returned. He was utterly astonished. It's just an illusion, that's all. The man smiled. Senior. Zhao Qingxian knelt down. You're welcome. The man helped Zhao Qingxian up and was extremely gentle. My name is Yang Shuangji. You can also call me Mr. Shuangji. Mr. Shuangji. Zhao Qingxian carefully mulled over this name, and at the same time, his expression was extremely astonished. I don't know Mr. Shuangji. May I ask why Mr. Shuangji is helping me? Life is full of hardships, but it's nothing. The man called Shuangji smiled. At that moment, Zhao Qingxian noticed a string of Buddha beads around the man's neck. Each bead was the size of a walnut, which gave Zhao Qingxian a sense of déjà vu. This was because Zhao Qingxian seemed to have seen the veined patterns on it somewhere before. Do you know your crime for going against the heavens? At that moment, on the originally calm river surface, a solemn voice rang out like the illusory sound of the great Tao. Zhao Qingxian felt a piercing pain in his ears. Just as he was about to kneel on the ground, Mr. Shuangji, who was next to him, tapped his ear lightly and easily quantified this force. The handsome heavenly Tao river god who had previously disappeared reappeared and stared at the man who had suddenly appeared in front of him with a pair of phoenix eyes. Obviously, he was very dissatisfied with Mr. Shuangji's meddling. If you have the ability, you can go against the heavens. May I know what crime I have committed? Mr. Shuangji took a step forward, his body surrounded by golden light. The most sacred of Buddhist studies? The heavenly Tao river god was extremely surprised. Lord River God, please step back. You are definitely no match for me. Yang Shuangji stood in front of Zhao Qingxian. I have fate with this person, so I will definitely protect him. You have broken the laws of the heavenly Tao. As a river god, how can I spare you? The phoenix-eyed river god was furious. His voice was indifferent and had a strong sense of majesty. In the next moment, the surface of the river began to boil. The laws of the great Tao intertwined and began to flow out. You overestimate yourself. Yang Shuangji shook his head. Qi. He put his palms together, and a golden Buddhist light shot out from his hands. Before the river god could fully express his anger, it pierced through the skull of the phoenix-eyed river god. The Buddhist light crashed into the river god's body. Accompanied by astonishing energy, the heavenly Tao river god was shattered on the spot and instantly evaporated. Chapter 1360. The heavenly river god was destroyed in an instant. Zhao Qingxian's surprise could no longer be described in words. The Golden Lamp monk was the only Buddhist sage he knew. He didn't expect that Mr. Shuangji in front of him was also a Buddhist sage. Zhao Qingxian had already experienced Golden Lamp monk's strength. Even before he came to Earth, Zhao Qingxian still remembered the words his father left him. His father was afraid that he would come to Earth and stir up trouble, so he left him a list of people that he must not provoke. In addition to Ling Jinren at the top of the list, monk Jin Dang's name was also on it. The list of people you must not provoke? At this moment, Mr. Shuangji smiled. His ability to read minds was as powerful as monk Jin Dang's. Mr. Shuangji's foresight is divine, just some small tricks. Yang Shuangji said, "This list of yours is quite interesting. I didn't expect that even my senior brother's name would be on it." "Mr. Shuangji, are you talking about Senior Golden Lamp?" Zhao Qingxian was shocked. This Yang Shuangji before him was actually the junior brother of the Golden Lamp monk? "Jin Dang is indeed my senior brother, but he probably doesn't know that I'm still alive." Yang Shuangji casually said, "Maybe my existence is bad news to him. Because in this way, he would no longer be Master's sole successor." Zhao Qingxian did not dare to reply. Although Yang Shuangji claimed to be Golden Lamp monk's junior brother, Zhao Qingxian still felt that this person exuded a strange feeling from head to toe. "Benefactor Zhao, if you think that my words are untrustworthy, then it's normal. One must always be on guard against others, but I believe that time and reality will prove everything." Yang Shuangji carefully looked at the information on the list and couldn't help but smile. "Benefactor Zhao, how about we kill all the people on this list together?" Zhao Qingxian thought he had misheard. "What are you talking about, sir?" He didn't believe that the person in front of him would be so daring as to say such words. "Don't worry, Benefactor Zhao. I've already renounced asceticism a long time ago. So killing a few people is just a basic operation for me." Yang Shuangji said lightly, as if he was just talking about a few ants. "I'm not even afraid of the heavenly Tao, and I even dare to go against the heavens. What's more, I've only killed a few people." "But sir, you don't understand." Zhao Qingxian tried his best to stop Yang Shuangji's crazy thoughts. Although he hadn't witnessed Wang Ling's methods with his own eyes, because when Wang Ling had made his move in the domain of the gods back then, the pressure had been so strong that Zhao Qingxian hadn't been able to react at all before he had already passed out. He had learned about Ling Jinren from the Zhao family servants, several clan elders and his father. Before they left, the Zhao clan's clan leader had repeatedly warned them not to provoke this person. Naturally, Zhao Qingxian would not turn a deaf ear to it. He had come to Earth on his father's orders to curry favor with Ling Jinren, so there was no way he would do such a treasonous thing. Of course, Lu Qingyi was also very important. Furthermore, Lu Qingyi and Ling Jinren had an extraordinary relationship, so it was even more impossible for Zhao Qingxian to offend Wang Ling if he wanted to woo Lu Qingyi. "I know what you're afraid of." At this time, Yang Shuangji said, "The benefactor surnamed Wang on the list. If my guess is correct, all of this is a trick of my senior brother." "Senior, what do you mean?" Zhao Qingxian was puzzled. "My senior brother has always been a liar through and through. Playing a two-man act is his usual trick." "Playing a two-man act?" "That's right, my senior brother has created countless legendary characters. Back then, he was even given the title of Buddha sock puppet." Yang Shuangji said, "Senior brother has reincarnated so many times, dressing up as a woman, being an emperor, beggar, eunuch, dying fat otaku. He's experienced all kinds of things. With such rich experiences, it's definitely not difficult for him to create a character for himself." Zhao Qingxian immediately understood what was going on. Buddha sock puppet, that was to say, Ling Jinren was actually monk Golden Lamp's sock puppet? Zhao Qingxian was completely confused by this. Now, he was actually starting to be unable to tell which side was right. On one hand, he indeed hadn't seen Wang Ling's strength with his own eyes, and had only heard from word of mouth that such a ridiculously strong man existed. On the other hand, Yang Shuangji spoke resolutely, as if he was extremely confident in his deduction. This made Zhao Qingxian very puzzled. Yang Shuangji's eyes gradually turned crazy. My senior brother's strength is unparalleled. If I wasn't still alive, I'm afraid that no one in this world would be able to restrain him. Apart from me, there can't be a human stronger than him. If there is, it must be his sock puppet. Zhao Qingxian, then sir, you mean, Yang Shuangji, I just need you to follow me for the time being, and then witness the moment my senior brother's plot is exposed. Zhao Qingxian, but I still don't understand why sir chose me, Yang Shuangji. Maybe you don't realize it, but you are a very important witness. Zhao Qingxian didn't dare believe it. Me? Your father sent you to Earth just to curry favor with the so-called almighties. But in fact, you don't need to curry favor with anyone. Yang Shuangji couldn't help laughing when he said this. Everything is predestined, in short. If you follow me, you'll get everything you want. Then, I'm willing to give it a try, sir. Zhao Qingxian gritted his teeth. Very good. Yang Shuangji nodded in satisfaction. First of all, our first step is to expose my senior brother's plot and destroy the sock puppets he created. Sir, are you confident? Of course. Yang Shuangji laughed. No one can resist my azure pestle. Elsewhere, in the Wang family's small villa, the monk was in the middle of asking for the heavenly Tao magic cube. After guarding the shop with the king's eye, Wang Ling had played with the hexahedron like a toy for a while before putting it aside. Now that he heard that the golden lamp was going to be made into a magic weapon, Wang Ling didn't hesitate to give it to him. In any case, it was useless to him. Zhenren's gift is too straightforward. The monk had thought that it wouldn't be easy to get the magic cube. At that moment, as he held the heavenly Tao magic cube in his hand, the expression on his face suddenly turned a little melancholic. For some reason, the golden lamp recalled how it and its little junior brother had fought over the magic cube. You have a junior brother? Wang Ling read the monk's thoughts and asked telepathically. Yes. My little junior brother. But he passed away a long time ago. And he used to be a magic cube enthusiast. Holding the magic cube in his hand, Monk Golden Lamp couldn't help but think of Wang Ling. He didn't think he was a particularly sentimental person. But for some reason, as he held the magic cube, he suddenly felt as if his little junior brother hadn't died yet. Are you sure your little junior brother is dead? Wang Ling asked telepathically at that moment. Monk Golden Lamp said succinctly, he's definitely dead. I scattered his ashes. Chapter 1361. At the mention of his junior brother, the monk's face was full of melancholy. As far as he could remember, Wang Ling had rarely seen this expression on the monk's face. It was obvious that the friendship between the monk and his junior brother back then was very deep. At that moment, the monk said, Amitabha, and then said, let me tell you about my experience of scattering the ashes back then. Wang Ling, Monk Golden Lamp said, back then, my junior brother and I entered the temple together to break through the Mongolian maze that Shifu had left behind. Whoever passed would inherit Shifu's legacy. But halfway there, I was trapped by the maze of the past that Shifu had left behind. Hearing this, Wang Ling understood. This Buddhist maze of the past was probably based on the same principle as the repentance palm of the past, which the monk had used against the primordial heavenly Tao. If the victim didn't reflect on themselves, they would be trapped in the infinite illusion of the past forever. This was my Shifu's test for me, but I let him down. Monk Golden Lamp sighed. If my junior brother had left me behind and continued on, he would have become Shifu's successor. However, he sacrificed himself to get me out of my predicament. And then you became the ultimate saint of Buddhism? Wang Ling asked. No. The monk shook his head. This poor monk's current cultivation was obtained by relying on my own strength after I attained enlightenment. Although junior brother saved me, I didn't open the gate of destiny in the temple hall. Junior brother was more suitable to be my successor than I was. He sacrificed himself to help me get out of trouble. This poor monk will remember this kind of friendship for the rest of his life. That gate of destiny is still in the temple hall to this day, and this poor monk has never opened it. I don't know what Shifu left for us. Maybe it's some magic weapon? Or some Buddhist scripture? At that moment, the monk laughed bitterly. But since it's an inheritance, it can definitely help one of us become the ultimate saint of Buddhism. Saying this, Monk Golden Lamp noticed that Wang Ling was suddenly frowning, as if he was deep in thought. Ling Zhenren? The monk asked. He rarely saw Wang Ling in a daze. If he did, something big was definitely going to happen. For example, the last time he had been in a daze, he had swapped souls with Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch. Wang Ling came back to his senses. Nothing. Zhao Qingxian was taken into Yang Shuangji's inner world. At the same time, Yang Shuangji, who was in action, also began to carry out his plan to remove his name from the list of people you must not provoke. Apart from Wang Ling and the monk, who were first and second on the list, the other names were in no particular order. Senior, aren't you going to kill Ling Zhenren? But why did you choose the last person on the list to attack first? Zhao Qingxian asked curiously in the inner world. Good dishes should be saved for last, Mr. Shuangji said. It was too meaningless to kill his own senior brother and senior brother's disguise too early. Thus, Yang Shuangji's idea was to get rid of all the other people on the list, and then finally deal with Monk Golden Lamp and Wang Ling. Since they could appear on this list, it was obvious that these people were related to his senior brother. The last person on the list, Lotus Sunday. This was the first target he wanted to kill. He was just a foundation establishment cultivator. He was at the level where he could destroy them with a single breath. However, Yang Shuangji did not know where the girl lived. Thus, he used his Azura pestle to determine the position. Zhao Qingxian, sir, what are you going to do? Yang Shuangji smiled. Just watch. He stood on a flat surface and placed the Azura pestle vertically on it. Then, he loosened his grip and the Azura pestle fell in a certain direction. It's that direction. This method of determining the position looked a little casual, but Yang Shuangji was convinced. It was the legendary Buddhist fate determining position method. You just had to silently recite the name of the person you were looking for. What was more convenient was that this list of people you must not provoke actually had photos of each person on it. Except for his senior brothers, Wang Ling's disguise, which had been blurred out, the photos of everyone else were very clearly listed next to their names. This undoubtedly made Yang Shuangji's search a lot easier. I think this girl isn't bad. If you like women, I think you can give her a try. Yang Shuangji chuckled. No, I only have Qingyi in my heart, there's no room for other women. Zhao Qingxian shook his head and refused. In the photo, Lotus Sun was indeed very beautiful, and her exquisite facial features could almost be described as impeccable. In Zhao Qingxian's words, this was the face of first love that all boys fantasized about. But as an infatuated man, he had already given his heart to Lu Qingyi long ago. The main reason he was willing to descend to earth this time was actually because of Lu Qingyi. I didn't expect you to be such a romantic, what a pity. Yang Shuangji smiled. Then I'll go first. In any case, I've already renounced asceticism and haven't touched a woman for a long time. Senior is thinking, that's right. I'll kill this girl first, then enjoy her while she's hot. The corners of Yang Shuangji's lips curled up in a wicked smile. Zhao Qingxian suddenly felt a little regretful. The person he was following didn't seem normal. He was too perverted. Most importantly, this kind of person was actually the most sacred of Buddhism. Was Buddha sure he wouldn't cry? Using the Azura Pestle's Buddhist fate-determining position method, Yang Shuangji very quickly arrived at the entrance of the luxurious villa where Lotus Sun lived. Too weak. In front of the door, Yang Shuangji sensed the aura inside the villa, and felt that the person inside was pitifully weak. But for a foundation establishment cultivator, he had to be a little more careful. Since he wanted to get close to a woman, he couldn't be too heavy-handed, or it would be very embarrassing if he slapped her into a paste. He raised his hand and aimed his palm in the direction of Lotus Sun's bedroom. He tried to use the force of his palm to lure the girl out of the room. In the end, at this moment, in the void, there was a wave of powerful aura that followed the direction of his palm force and attacked in reverse. Like a long river flowing backward, the enormous energy instantly shook off Yang Shuangji's palm. An expert? Yang Shuangji's heart shook. He hadn't expected a top expert to be hiding in this house. While he was thinking, a shadow was gathering in the air. Countless shadows poured out from Lotus Sun's bedroom, and finally formed the shape of Sun Ying'er. Who is it? Someone wants to attack my Rongrong. As soon as Sun Ying'er appeared, she turned her gaze to Yang Shuangji at the door. Humph. Anyone who dares to touch my Rongrong must die. In her rage, her snow-white hair fluttered in the air. Sun Ying'er pursed her lips, and in a flash, she split into 10 odd clones and charged toward Yang Shuangji. Chapter 1362. There's actually a clone with the same energy as the main body? This was the first time Yang Shuangji had encountered such a thing. Strictly speaking, he felt that this was not a clone at all. However, Yang Shuangji seemed to gradually understand the specific principle of using it as he dealt with the clones. These clones were all based on the main body, so as long as the main body was taken down, the clones would automatically disappear. At this moment, Yang Shuangji turned his gaze to Sun Ying'er in the void. He spread out his right hand. Pestle. A purplish-gold Buddhist pestle with a ferocious beast carved on its head passed through layers of space walls and came to his hand. This was the Azura pestle that Yang Shuangji was proud of. The ferocious beast on its head was the hell beast that suppressed the 18 levels of hell. Although it was a Buddhist item, it had an extremely strong murderous aura. Sun Ying'er's main body had yet to approach, but just by smelling the Azura pestle's aura, she felt that the void in front of her was filled with illusions. Everything was dyed blood red. Even the water vapor in the air seemed to have turned into a blood mist, making it difficult to breathe. Buzz. Senior, why does she look like she's in pain? Zhao Qingxian asked curiously in the inner world. He did not know what had happened. From his perspective, it was still blue sky and white clouds. Everything was normal. This is the Azura blood illusion array of the Azura pestle. The more people kill, the harder it is to escape. Yang Shuangji sneered. She's trapped by my Azura pestle and can't escape for now. Everything in the illusion array is fake, and we're still in reality. Now, all we need to do is walk in and take down that girl. But who is this white-haired girl? She should be the one who refined her shadow into a magic treasure. Although I don't know how she did it, I'm slightly surprised. She's just a foundation establishment. Before Yang Shuangji could finish speaking, a shadow suddenly whipped out from the void and hit the right side of his face. Immediately afterward, Yang Shuangji's entire face began to distort. He quickly flew backward and crashed into a metal pier in the distance, causing the entire bridge to collapse. Although there was a huge commotion, Yang Shuangji himself did not seem to be too badly injured. After he got up from the pile of rubble, he was surprised to find that Sun Ying'er had used her own strength to break free from the illusion. Humph. You didn't expect this, did you? Sun Ying'er chuckled. The more people killed, the harder it was to escape. Sun Ying'er smiled. Ever since she had turned into a shadow and became the master of the void, she had fought with many people from the war sect. But the problem was that she hadn't killed a single person. Not only did he not commit any murder, but he was also forced to accept Wang Ying's beatings every day. Thinking of this, Sun Ying'er was about to cry out of grievance. In her grief and indignation, she broke free from the illusion of the Azura pestle almost immediately and gave Yang Shuangji a face-breaking punch. Although the split body hit the right side of the face, the power of this punch was enough. The damage from the backlash was reflected on the doppelganger in an instant, shattering it into pieces. However, Yang Shuangji's entire body flew very far away, but such an explosive punch did not cause any substantial damage to him. Sun Ying'er was slightly surprised. The person in front of her was much stronger than she had imagined. Supreme Buddhism, she muttered. Just as the split body punched out, she saw a layer of Buddha's light protecting Yang Shuangji's body, although it was only for a moment. Sun Ying'er was sure that she did not see wrong. In addition, there was the Azura pestle that was floating in the void. This was a powerful Buddhist world-defying magical artifact. And what made Sun Ying'er even more shocked was that there was chaotic force flowing in it, at least 5% of it. Fortunately, her battle strength was not low, otherwise, she would have been done for. I don't know how the little girl inside refined the shadow into an artifact, but if you are willing to come with me, I can spare your master's life. I will only rape him, not kill him. Yang Shuangji said. You are a supreme Buddhism, how can you say such shameless words? I have lived for a long time. You are not a fake monk, are you? Sun Ying'er listened to Yang Shuangji's words, feeling incredulous and a little funny at the same time. Also, what makes you think that I am a refined artifact? She felt that the fake monk in front of her had an inexplicable kind of conceit, and it was the kind of conceit of a frog in a well. Although Sun Ying'er had heard that the Golden Lamp monk was also extremely confident in his own strength, at least he would reflect on himself. They were both supreme Buddhists, but why was the gap so big? Sun Ying'er felt that the man in front of her was revealing something strange. If he was a fake monk, the holy aura he exuded was real, just like the Golden Lamp monk. If he was a real monk. Sun Ying'er could not accept that such a thought, which was even more perverted than Wang Ying, would appear in the head of such a supreme Buddhism saint. Since that's the case, I'll take both of you down today. A threesome, perhaps it will be more enjoyable. Yang Shuangji licked his lips. He manipulated the Azura pestle, jumped up from a distance, and attacked Sun Ying'er. At this time, Sun Ying'er was still in deep shock. She thought that Wang Ying was perverted enough. She did not expect that there would be an even more perverted one. Sure enough, there was no limit to the realm of perversion. With such a comparison, Sun Ying'er suddenly felt that Wang Ying was much more normal than Yang Shuangji. At the very least, Wang Ying had only used the planet wall tapping technique on her. Although it made her waist hurt, he did not do anything else that crossed the line. Compared to Yang Shuangji, Wang Ying was simply a gentleman. As long as I can restrain you, your split bodies will disappear. At this time, Yang Shuangji's laughter came from afar. His Azura pestle burst out in full force at this moment, and the blood-colored Buddha light shone for thousands of miles, incomparably gorgeous, with a natural majesty in the awe-inspiring atmosphere. Those split bodies were all suppressed to the ground, like nails deeply embedded in the ground, unable to move. At the same time, the Azura pestle fell on Sun Ying'er's body to suppress it. That dense oppressive force caused the careless girl to be trapped. It's all that damn Wang Ying's fault. Sun Ying'er was panicking. Her strength was restricted by Wang Ying, which allowed Yang Shuangji to have the upper hand at this time. Otherwise, how could a mere Yang Shuangji be her opponent? Yang Shuangji revealed a wretched expression. His tongue was very long, and when he pounced in front of Sun Ying'er, he almost licked Sun Ying'er's face. However, at this time, there was a buzzing sound. The huge black shadow that covered the sky and the earth suddenly did not come. The black shadow was like a tide, sweeping in from all directions, instantly sweeping Sun Ying'er away. Yang Shuangji stuck out his tongue. In the end, he only licked her loneliness. At the critical moment, Sun Ying'er was rescued. She felt a domineering force suddenly pulling her away, and she could not be more familiar with this force. It was that man who appeared. He was like a god appearing to save her, and then quickly swept Yang Shuangji into his inner world. Here. It was Wang Ying's inner world. Wang Ying. Sun Ying'er was almost sobbing. All kinds of emotions intertwined in her heart. She was a little touched, but she was more disgusted by the tongue that Yang Shuangji had just stuck out. You, who are you? Facing the man who suddenly appeared, Yang Shuangji was feeling depressed that he did not succeed. Touch my people? Wang Ying frowned. He stood with his hands behind his back, not even moving a finger. The countless shadows in the inner world turned into tens of millions of strips, and instantly attacked. You. Yang Shuangji's eyes were filled with horror. This power was too terrifying, and the Shura pestle that he was so proud of was snatched away by these strips of shadows, instantly swallowed up. That was the magic weapon that he was so proud of. Now that it was snatched away, Yang Shuangji instantly lost most of his sense of security. The countless strips rolled in from all directions, pulling Yang Shuangji's limbs, tightly wrapping him up. No! Yang Shuangji shouted, burning his own blood essence, wanting to resist. However, all of this was useless. Wang Ying's speed was too fast, his figure was as dense as a ghost, and instantly appeared in front of Yang Shuangji, stretching out his hand and strangling his neck. Yang Shuangji was in pain from being strangled, and the tongue in his mouth was forcefully squeezed out by Wang Ying. Wang Ying did not say anything. Only to hear, "Chi." Another sound. He controlled the strips of shadows around him, and pulled out Yang Shuangji's entire tongue. However, to Wang Ying, all of this was just the beginning. "You still haven't moved, where?" Wang Ying stared at Yang Shuangji coldly. He began to torture at his own pace. In the inner world, Yang Shuangji's screams were heard, at this moment. This was a unique song that belonged to Wang Ying, the Shadow Dao execution song. Chapter 1363. Wang Ying didn't know why he hated Yang Shuangji so much. Maybe it was because of Yang Shuangji's insufferably arrogant face. Maybe it was because of Yang Shuangji's arrogant, complacent, and insufferably arrogant attitude. Or even simpler, it was simply because Yang Shuangji had bullied Sun Yinger. Mixed up with these emotions, the rage in Wang Ying's heart was on the verge of bursting out. There was no suspense in the ensuing battle. The only difference between them was the king's eye, and Yang Shuangji naturally wasn't Wang Ying's match. He strangled Yang Shuangji's neck, cut off his tongue, and finally broke his fingers one by one. These filthy, evil hands made Wang Ying's blood run cold and disgusting. Shadow Dao Execution Tune was the most terrifying of all Shadow Dao spells that Wang Ying had, and was ranked number 1. Its power was second only to the Shadow Ball which he had used to deal with the groundhog. But once it was carried out, it would make people experience the inhumane feeling of abuse. The heart-wrenching damage that would be transmitted would not cause one to die, but it would be able to destroy one's spirit through the continuous abuse. In the end, it collapsed. Shadow Ball was an immobilizing destructive spell. Every second spent in the Shadow Ball would cause damage equivalent to one slap from Wang Ling. But Wang Ying felt that using Shadow Ball to deal with someone like Yang Shuangji was going too easy on him. As for the Shadow Dao Execution Tune, it was perfect for Yang Shuangji. Like long spears, striped shadows attacked from all directions and pierced through Yang Shuangji's body. One of them pierced Yang Shuangji's mouth directly, piercing his throat all the way through and coming out through the soles of his feet. However, Wang Ying's abuse didn't stop there. His eyes were bloodshot as he entered a berserk state. This was a Wang Ying that Sun Yinger had never seen before. For a moment, the girls suddenly felt fear. In a berserk state, Wang Ying directed thousands of striped shadows to poke holes in Yang Shuangji's body. He kept repeating his actions. He was like an emotionless, ice-cold machine. Sun Yinger finally couldn't take it anymore. She stepped forward and hugged him from behind. "Enough. Wang Ying. He's already dead." This call finally brought Wang Ying back to his senses. The red light in his eyes receded. Peace returned to the inner world. All that was left was Yang Shuangji's corpse, which had been tortured beyond recognition. At this point, all the executions had been completed. Wang Ying stabbed her hand into Yang Shuangji's dantian. As soon as Yang Shuangji died, the inner world within him began to collapse. However, Wang Ying could sense that there was another person hidden in Yang Shuangji's inner world. Then, Zhao Qingxian was pulled out. Wang Ying grabbed Zhao Qingxian's neck, scaring him out of his wits. "Senior! Senior, don't kill me. I was forced by him. The son of the divine realms Zhao family's patriarch. Wang Ying read out this person's background. He also knew why Zhao Qingxian was hanging out with Yang Shuangji. Earlier, Zhao Qingxian had said, he only has Lu Qingyi in his heart. This sentence actually saved Zhao Qingxian's life. He sensed that Zhao Qingxian bore no malice towards Lotus Sunday. In the end, Wang Ying brought Zhao Qingxian out of the inner world and threw him on the ground. Thank you for not killing me, senior. Zhao Qingxian hurriedly kowtowed and begged for mercy. Someone as strong as Yang Shuangji had been abused by Wang Ying to the point where he couldn't even put up a fight. This kind of strength instantly gave Zhao Qingxian a clearer understanding of his trip to Earth. Can you let go of me? At that moment, Wang Ying frowned and asked. Sun Yinger was still hugging him like a koala bear. Ah, sorry. Sun Yinger hurriedly let go. But get this straight. I wasn't going to hug you just now. I know. I didn't hug you because I wanted you to calm down because you were in a killing frenzy. I know. It's all because your inner world is too cold. Wang Ying nodded. He allowed the young girl to make these seemingly weak arguments. By the way, how did you know I was in danger? Sun Yinger was curious. You're too stupid. You could be in danger at any time, Wang Ying replied. Who's stupid? I've been observing from the side for a long time. If it weren't for Miss Sun being in danger, I wouldn't have made a move. It's also not because the Lord predicted that you would be in danger, so he came, Wang Ying said expressionlessly. You're not honest at all. Humph. Sun Yinger said. You're the same. Wang Ying shrugged and stared at Sun Yinger. Tonight, you still owe me 200 punishments. Why? You failed to protect Miss Sun, and you still need me to make a move. You're the Void Master. Wang Ying smiled coldly. It's obviously you. When Sun Yinger heard Wang Ying's words, she wanted to go up and ruthlessly trample on Wang Ying's face, but she restrained her impulse in the end. She wanted to say that it was Wang Ying who restricted her ability. But when the words reached her mouth, she didn't dare to say it. She knew that once she said it, she would fall into Wang Ying's trap. He would definitely seize the opportunity to increase the number of punishments. It's just 200 times. Fine, I'll punish you. Sun Yinger stomped her feet in exasperation. Then, she turned her gaze to Yang Shuangji, who was not even human anymore. What's going on with this person? The Lord has already divined this person's background, so I have to ask you, Wang Ying said. Ask me? What does it have to do with me? Sun Yinger put her hands on her hips and put on an innocent expression. This person is not a Buddhist saint, Wang Ying said. How is that possible? Zhao Qingxian, who was still kneeling on the ground, looked shocked. But he clearly told me that he's Grandmaster Jin Deng's junior brother. Grandmaster Jin Deng's junior brother died a long time ago. How could a Buddhist disciple who was willing to die in order to save his senior brother possibly say these insulting words of Buddhism? Wang Ying said. After he said that, Sun Yinger carefully observed Yang Shuangji, and the expression on her face suddenly became extremely surprised. Did you notice? Wang Ying asked. Sun Yinger reached out, and a light seal appeared in her palm. It was the Void Master's seal. She reached out and covered Yang Shuangji's body. The blood-drenched body instantly turned into particles of light and disappeared. This is an imaginary creature? Yes, this person is an imaginary creature from the Void world. He's also our old friend, Wang Ying said. Everyone knew that the minds of the Void creatures were connected. They lived in the Void and relied on all kinds of imagination to obtain spiritual satisfaction and pleasure. These imaginative things usually did not affect reality. However, there was still a very small probability that these imagination things would be reflected in real life, to put it bluntly. If the obsession was strong enough, they could use the power of the Void to reimagine themselves. I know that the void creatures are now under strict control, so this kind of situation can't happen. But you need to know that your void world is not clean for a long time, Wang Ying said. Are you talking about the human cultivators who evolved into void creatures? Sun Yinger was surprised. This is the only reason why a void creature would have such a strong obsession. Wang Ying said, Golden Dang's junior brother is not called Yang Shuangji. This person disguised himself as a Buddhist saint and changed his name to Yang Shuangji, which is actually a hint to his true identity. You're saying he is Yang, the symbol of day. Shuangji is Zhe. It has the same sound as Zhe. This person is still alive? Sun Yinger was shocked. She had inherited all the energy and information of the old Void Master, so she naturally knew about this person. But this person was already dead. All the Baizhi in the parallel worlds had been completely destroyed. I didn't think that there would be someone with such a strong obsession in this world. Wang Ying couldn't help but laugh. Baizhi's obsession was unbelievable even to him. He was already dead. He even used the last remnant of his will to assume the identity of the deceased and forcefully filled in the gaps in his mind. P.S. For this chapter, see Chapter 1261. The Night of Demolition in 112660. Hi. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.